Chapter 21-28. Dying. The other party roared angrily, reaching out a large hand and fiercely sweeping a palm towards Murong Yu's face. A cold glint flashed across Murong Yu's eyes, and a cold smile flashed across his face. He did not move, just throwing a punch. A cold smile appeared on the face of this Xianyu Galaxy disciple, and he exerted force with his large hand, directly slapping out. Boom! However, before his attack could land on Murong Yu's body, all of a sudden, he felt as if his chest had been violently struck by a gravitational force. Following that, an intense pain traveled from his chest to his brain. He was greatly shocked and looked down, only to see that Murong Yu's fist had already landed on his chest at some point. He was greatly shocked, but he only had time to say one word before spitting out a large mouthful of blood. At the same time, his entire person was sent flying out. With a smack, this Xianyu Galaxy Branch disciple fell to the ground like a dead dog, his body twitching nonstop. Strands of chaotic aura were constantly being emitted from his body. Very clearly, he was already seriously injured. Because of the pain, his face became hideous, and his eyes were filled with resentment as he looked at Murong Yu. His lips moved, but he could not make a sound. At this moment, the power that Murong Yu blasted into his body turned into vortexes, constantly wreaking havoc in his meridians, causing him unspeakable pain. Trash! Murong Yu sneered, and with one kick, he sent the other party flying out of this independent space. Swoosh! Just as this person was sent flying out, Murong Yu felt countless gazes cast over from all directions, focusing on him. Shock! Murong Yu saw intense shock from practically all the gazes. After all, Murong Yu was only at the 6th stage of the Insight Realm, but he defeated a 9th stage Genesis Realm with one punch. This was not a show, but a real display of strength. At the same time that they looked at Murong Yu, massive divine senses already pierced into the Xianyu Galaxy Branch disciple's body. With this look, everyone was greatly shocked, because they had all witnessed the terror of Murong Yu's power vortex. At this moment, Murong Yu's power vortex was still wreaking havoc in the other party's body. Although the other party had been suppressing it all along, it could not be suppressed at all. Seeing this scene, everyone finally felt relieved. Murong Yu's destructive power was seriously too terrifying. Even a 9th stage Genesis realm could not withstand it. However, how did this power vortex form? Now, aside from shock, everyone's gazes towards Murong Yu also contained traces of curiosity and doubt. Regarding this, Murong Yu secretly laughed in his heart. He had purposely left the energy whirlpool in the body of the disciple from the Xianyu Starfield's branch so that others would discover this phenomenon. Otherwise, Murong Yu's battle prowess would really be too shocking. Although it was still quite heaven-defying now, it was still within everyone's acceptable range after all. After all, many people thought that Murong Yu being able to have this battle prowess was entirely due to the power vortex. Junior brother, your strength is not bad. Let me try. After a while, a cultivator jumped into the space where Murong Yu was, said a sentence, and then raised his fist and threw a punch. 9th stage Genesis realm. Murong Yu glanced at the other party, and with a boom, exploded with a powerful force, charging towards the other party. Swish! Massive divine senses immediately acted on Murong Yu's body. To be precise, it should be acting on the power on the surface of his body, because all of Murong Yu's power carried the power vortex. However, these people did not affect Murong Yu, and just disappeared in a flash. After all, if they interfered, Murong Yu might be affected. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the two sides directly collided. After a loud bang, with the location of the collision as the center, the space was directly torn apart. Murong Yu's opponent let out a scream, and his entire fist had already been crushed by Murong Yu's power vortex. In fact, in front of the power vortex, his power was not even able to withstand a single blow. 9 syllables of mantra, character formula. Murong Yu activated the character formula, and instantly, the power of space rippled around Murong Yu's body. Meanwhile, Murongyu's large hand fiercely grabbed at the void. In the next moment, a battle saber condensed from the power of space had already appeared in Murongyu's hand. At the same time, accompanied by a cold shout from Murongyu, the battle saber had already carried a terrifying power and swiftly slashed down towards the opponent. The opponent was shocked, and his large hand grabbed at the void, and an origin tool had already appeared, directly slashing at Murongyu's battle saber. Boom! The opponent felt the origin tool in his hand tremble violently, and a terrifying power vortex acted on the origin tool one after another. The opponent's palm hurt, and his large hand loosened, and the origin tool in his hand was already knocked out of his hand. Murongyu held the battle saber and slashed down once again. Heavenly King Pagoda, suppress and kill for me. The opponent roared, took out a pagoda-shaped magic treasure, and viciously attacked Murongyu. Murongyu smiled faintly, and the battle saber in his hand fiercely slashed upwards, directly sending the Heavenly King Pagoda flying out. The opponent was shocked, but Murongyu had already rushed up, and with a kick, he was sent flying. The power vortex surged into his body and began to wreak havoc in his meridians. What? The opponent was shocked and hurriedly mobilized his power to expel the power vortex. However, just as his power approached the power vortex, it was already crushed. I admit defeat. Seeing that Murongyu was still going to attack, the opponent's face turned pale. He hurriedly admitted defeat. Senior brother, my apologies. Murongyu smiled, and his large hand made a grabbing motion in the direction of the opponent. In the next instant, the opponent discovered that the power vortex in his body had already been taken away from him by Murongyu. Junior brother, your power is too frightening. I lost willingly. The opponent clasped his fists at Murongyu and then flew out of this independent space. Murongyu's original battle prowess could already match a first-level Heaven Tier elite. Added with the power vortex that had fused 3 small power vortexes, there was practically no one below the Heaven Tier that could withstand a single move from him. This was still because Murongyu had not attacked with full power, or else he could have defeated that disciple with a single punch. Murongyu won again, and attracted even more people's curiosity about him. Even some of the big shots in the headquarters had begun to notice his existence. Not long after, another person jumped into this space. However, this person's strength was only at the 8th level of the Genesis tier, and was blasted out of the independent space by Murongyu with a single punch. Next, Murongyu encountered many opponents, but without exception, they were all easily defeated by Murongyu. In fact, in the end, no one dared to enter this space anymore. Perhaps everyone felt that Murongyu was really too strong? Murongyu did not leave this independent space, either. The longer he persisted, the higher his ranking would be. The rules were like this. There were only 10,000 independent spaces in the Genesis tier, but whoever persisted to the end would be able to enter the top 10,000. Then, these people would begin to compete for first place, and those who lost would be determined according to the number of battles they fought and the number of victories they won. Like that disciple from the Xianyu Galaxy branch, if he lost the first time, then it would be embarrassing. The level of the Xianyu Galaxy branch was still at the 9th level, and could not be promoted by a single level. Of course, if that person could persist for 2 rounds and win a match, the Xianyu Galaxy branch could automatically be promoted by a level. If someone was promoted, there would naturally be someone who would be demoted. Originally, there would be a branch that would be demoted at the 8th level. Every exchange was a reshuffling of cards. At the same time, this rule of the Heavenly Mystery Palace caused every branch to be in competition. This way, every branch of the Heavenly Mystery Palace would continuously improve their own strength and nurture more genius disciples. A few days later, the top 10,000 names had already appeared. However, the competition continued. However, the independent spaces for the competition were reduced to 1,000. After the first 1,000 names appeared, the independent spaces would decrease to 100, and so on. Half a month later, there were already only 10 people on the Genesis tier side who were still in the plaza. These 10 people were the top 10 in the Genesis tier. Among them, Morong Yu was included. Now, what they had to do was to decide the first to 10th place. I'm determined to get first place. A young man about 28 or 29 years old swept a glance over Morong Yu and the others, his expression confident. Morong Yu knew this person. His name was Enchantment, and his strength was very strong. Although he was not as good as a first-level heaven tier cultivator, his battle prowess was practically an invincible existence in the Genesis tier. Everyone knows I talk big. Let's see who will get first place with our fists. A youth said in a cold voice. His name was Yu Buoguang, and his strength was similarly not bad. In reality, the strength of the 10 of them was not bad, or else they would not have been able to last until now. Morong Yu did not speak, just standing where he was without moving. Whether or not he could get first place was not based on words. However, very soon, Morong Yu felt that something was wrong. Although he did not speak, he just stood where he was. But the gazes of the other 9 people all gathered on him in the end, all filled with fighting spirit. Fighting spirit overflowed. He was unjustly implicated. Morong Yu, I heard that your strength is not bad, but you can only fool those trash for a while. You better pray that you don't run into me, or else you will be the person at the bottom, Ing Zhiping said with a cold smile, a hint of strong disdain flashing across the depths of his eyes. The others were also filled with fighting spirit and looked at Morong Yu disdainfully, although Morong Yu also stood with them. But they kept feeling that Morong Yu did not live up to his name. He was merely level 6 Insight Realm. If not for his strength being more special, how could he possibly stand here? Except, what these people did not know was that Morong Yu already attracted the attention of those important figures in the Heavenly Mystery Palace's headquarters at this time. Being able to defeat a level 9 Genesis Realm cultivator at this level, such potential was truly terrifying. If he grew to Heaven tier, or even True Self Realm, then wouldn't he be able to directly contend with the terrifying existence of Selfless Realm? Chapter 21-29. Morong Yu was a dark horse. His freakish existence had already attracted the attention of the majority of the people present, and even those not present. Forget about the people in the branch. The most important were the important figures in the headquarters. Once these people took a fancy to him, it was very likely that they would directly take Morong Yu as their disciple. As a result, Morong Yu's status rose as well. Many people were very clear about this, especially the 9 people in the top 10. They all knew clearly that if they defeated Morong Yu, perhaps they would win the attention of those important figures. What they didn't know was, even if they defeated Morong Yu, so what? They were all existences in the 9th level of the Genesis Realm. And Morong Yu was only in the 6th level of the Insight Realm. Their potential was not on the same level as Morong Yu's at all. It could even be said that one was the sky and the other was the earth. There was a huge gap between the two. You are destined to be disappointed, because I am determined to get the first place. Morong Yu glanced at the 9 people and said calmly. The 9 people only sneered, and all of them were circling around Morong Yu, thinking about how they would attack quickly and kill Morong Yu in one move once they met him. Very soon, the battle began. As there were only 10 people, they just happened to be divided into 5 groups to fight. Morong Yu against Japong. Haha, Morong Yu admit defeat. Otherwise, I will make you lose very badly. Ing Japong laughed loudly and jumped into an independent space first. Morong Yu shook his head helplessly. There are too many arrogant people these days. However, he didn't dawdle, and very soon, he also entered an independent space. Take this, Ing Japong roared, and directly took out his Dharma treasure and origin tool, and then attacked from both sides. This guy actually directly exploded with extreme power and directly attacked Morong Yu. Morong Yu smiled faintly. You have a magical weapon, but mine isn't bad either. With a thought, the shadow-stepping hall had already been summoned. It hovered above his head, and strands of powerful energy descended, enveloping Morong Yu firmly. Boom! Boom! Ing Zhiping's magic treasures and Yuan Qi violently smashed against the stepping shadow palace, but the impact only caused the palace to tremble violently. However, it did not affect Murong-Yu in the slightest. The Shadow Step Palace was a high-level Heaven-tier defensive treasure and was capable of bursting out with a Heaven-tier defense. Yingzhipeng's attack power might not be low, but he was not at the level of Heaven-tier, so he could not shake the defenses of the Shadow Step Palace Hall at all. How could he hurt Murong-Yu if he couldn't break through his defense? Kill! Murong-Yu roared. With the Shadow Palace above his head, he who was in invincible position no longer had to worry about whether or not he would fail. He only unleashed his powerful strength and punched at Yingzhipeng again and again. Bang! 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 Strands of power that carried a vortex of power like stormy waves continuously bombarded Yingzhipeng, causing him to retreat repeatedly. His face was pale, and he did not have the strength to fight back. Yingzhipeng was able to persist until the end and charge into the top 10. His strength was indeed not bad. He could barely bombard Murong-Yu's power. Even Murong-Yu's power could not blast into his body. Otherwise, once Murong-Yu's power surged into his body, Yingzhipeng would definitely lose. But even so, Yingzhipeng was having a very difficult time resisting. The main reason was that the vortexes of power were too terrifying. Often, the power of one punch would carry hundreds of millions of vortexes, and every vortex was spinning at high speed. Whenever Yingzhipeng's power came into contact with Murong-Yu's power, part of his power would be crushed by the vortexes of power, and it would not take more than a few moments for all his power to be completely crushed. The vortexes of power were too terrifying. Unless Yingzhipeng's power completely surpassed Murong-Yu's, he would be able to blow up these vortexes of power with one punch. However, Yingzhipeng was not a Heaven-tier elite, so how could he have the power to blow up Murong-Yu so easily? Thus, after the great battle began, Yingzhipeng could only passively accept the battle and could not take the initiative to attack at all. And Murong-Yu's attacks were like a storm. In an instant, he could deliver 1,000,000 punches, bombarding Yingzhipeng until his face was ashen, and he complained bitterly. Outside the plaza, the great elder watched Murong-Yu in battle without blinking, a brilliant smile on his face, and said, Murong-Yu's battle prowess is originally comparable to the 9th level of the Genesis tier, and with his vortexes of power, no one below the Heaven tier is his match. Yin Jingtian chuckled. This brat has really given us a lot of surprises. Judging by the looks of it, he must be the first in the Genesis tier. With his heaven-defying potential, I'm afraid he has already attracted the attention of those important figures, right? I wonder if anyone could take a fancy to him and take him in as a disciple. The great elder nodded slightly. Murong-Yu's potential is terrifying. I'm sure he's already broken his head trying to get him. Not to mention those important figures, even I want to take him in as a disciple. However, the Milky Way star field branch can't accommodate a great god like him. Not necessarily. As long as Murong-Yu gets first place, then we can be promoted to a first-level branch. At that time, grooming him is still no problem. However, maybe the headquarters is unwilling to let him go. Yin Jingtian frowned slightly. A branch was a branch, and could not contend with the headquarters. All along, any branch that had overly outstanding disciples would ultimately be poached by those important figures of the headquarters. Thus, after countless years, the headquarters became more and more powerful. But the branch was still the same, and could never rival the headquarters. Perhaps this was the intention of the headquarters. They were not willing to see the branch surpass the headquarters one day. Just as Yin Jingtian said, the Heavenly Mystery Palace's headquarters was currently in an uproar. There was only one reason, and that was because of Murong-Yu. These noisy people were all important figures of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. Those who could be called important figures were at least true self-realm level existences. Deva realm cultivators did not even have the qualifications to be elders at the Heavenly Mystery Palace's headquarters. And this group of people arguing right now were the Heavenly Mystery Palace's true important figures. Each and every one of them had incomparably terrifying strength. This Murong-Yu, our W star, is determined to have him. Whoever dares to fight with me, that's not giving me face. An old man looked at the remaining 6 people in the great hall with a flushed face and roared loudly. "Humph, old man Dubhe, is your face very big? Murong, you must join our Alcade Star." "Not convinced. Come and fight," the Alcade Star elder said solemnly, not giving the slightest bit of face to Great Elder Dubhe, making Great Elder Dubhe so angry that his face flushed red. "Murong Yu is the first such heaven-defying disciple in the history of our heavenly mystery palace. Do you, Dubhe and Alcade, feel that you have the ability to groom him?" "I feel that Mizar Star is Murong Yu's best choice." Fectus Star, Alyath, Merak, Migrez, 7 important figures. Although the Heavenly Mystery Palace was an organization, there were 7 most powerful branches inside. 7 stars. The so-called 7 stars were Dubhe Star, Merak Star, Fectus Star, Mizar Star, Alcade Star, Alyath Star, and Migrez Star. It was said that these 7 branches were the 7 disciples of the Heavenly Mystery Palace's founder. Then, after a long period of development, the Heavenly Mystery Palace became the current 7-star sovereign. And the 7 in the Great Hall were all the elders of their respective branches. Whether it was strength or authority, they were all extremely powerful. Their authority was second only to the Heavenly Mystery Palace's Palace Lord. However, it was precisely because the strength of the 7 branches was about the same that they had to fight over Murong Yu even more. Once Murong Yu grew, then they would trample the other 6 branches underfoot. It was not that they wanted to control the Heavenly Mystery Palace. They just wanted to be stronger than the other branches. This was a normal and healthy competitive relationship. Stop arguing. If you continue arguing, when will you make a decision? I feel that it's better to let Murong Yu choose himself, the Alcade Star elder said solemnly. Everyone nodded their heads, each and every one of their eyes twinkling. Presumably, they were already secretly thinking about what benefits to give Murong Yu to be able to let him join their branch. Haha, you guys say, with Murong Yu's terrifying potential, will he be taken in as a disciple by those founders, or even the founders? The Alcade Star elder suddenly said. Everyone was stunned. Following that, each and every one of their faces suddenly changed. Murong Yu's potential was too terrifying. He really might be taken in by those founders, or even the founders. If taken in by the founders, then wouldn't he be in the same generation as them? And if taken in by the founders, then Murong Yu's seniority would be at the founder level, even higher than them, these elders. I think as long as we take in Murong Yu first, they won't snatch with us, right? The Alcade Star elder suddenly said weakly. Haha, you think that your master won't snatch? I feel that you can try. At most, you'll only be beaten black and blue by your master. Yao Guang chuckled. The Alcade Star elder's face darkened, and he couldn't help but think of his violent master. Then, he couldn't help but shudder. His master was powerful, and he liked to beat people up. He wouldn't have any scruples because of the Alcade Star elder's current status. He would beat him up first. The Alcade Star elder said resentfully, Don't be so smug. Your master isn't any better. Thus, everyone was worried. It wasn't that they didn't want Murong Yu to be their junior brother or founder. However, what else could make them feel more superior than having cultivated a peerless powerhouse with their own hands? If Murong Yu became their junior brother, or even their founder, then, no matter how powerful Murong Yu was in the future, he wouldn't be their disciple. Fight! This time, even if I get beaten up by my master, I'll accept it. The Alcade Star elder's face became resolute. Right? Do you want to be beaten up? At this moment, a faint voice sounded in the main hall. At the same time, a figure appeared out of thin air in the main hall. The Alcade Star elder's face suddenly changed. Master! The faces of Alcade Star elder and the others instantly became serious, and they hurriedly bowed to this person. This master had a bad temper, and they couldn't afford to offend him. Otherwise, he wouldn't care about your status and beat you up first. Although they were powerful, this master was even more powerful. Chapter 2130. Master, could it be that you've also taken a fancy to Murong Yu, that brat? Grand Elder Tianshu inquired cautiously. As one of Tianshu's disciples, he was often beaten up. Therefore, he was especially careful with his words. Hearing Tianshu's inquiry, Grand Elder Yaoguang and the rest of the six also looked at Tianshu with hopeful looks. How they hoped that Tianshu would say no. It was just that Tianshu was destined to disappoint them, only to see him chuckle, then swept a glance at Grand Elder Tianshu and the rest. You few little fellows, could it be that you also want to take that brat as your disciple? Although your strength is still passable. But do you think you can teach that brat well? Hearing this sentence, Grand Elder Tianshu and the rest knew that it was impossible for them to take Murong Yu as their disciple. After all, their sect elders had interfered. They could not continue to interfere. After all, regardless of whether it was strength, cultivation realm, or even resources, etc., they were all inferior to Tianshu and the rest. Master, Uncle Master, Tianshu inquired again. Haha, how can those few fellows not be tempted? Such a good seedling. Just a little nurturing, and he can surpass you few little fellows. Grand Elder Tianshu and the rest's faces darkened. No matter what, they were one of the top powerhouses of Tianji Palace, actually being called little fellows by others. However, they did not dare to refute. Not convinced, Tianshu would use his fist to convince them wholeheartedly. However, those few fellows are in closed-door cultivation. So, Tianshu chuckled, very pleased with himself, as if Murong Yu would definitely enter his tutelage. On the other side, Murong Yu and Ing Zhiping had already decided the victor. Ing Zhiping's strength was formidable, but after being attacked by Murong Yu like a storm, he was ultimately still blasted out of the independent space. This was still because Murong Yu did not use his full strength, did not use soul attack, and did not use shadow step either. Otherwise, he would have long been defeated by Murong Yu with one punch. Enter the top 5. At this time, the other 4 groups' matches had not ended yet. After all, those who could enter the top 10 had similar combat strength. It was impossible to determine the victor in a short while. Half a day later, the 4 groups had a victor one after another. After resting for a few days, the competition began again. However, this time, one of the 5 people was destined to have a bye. Fortunately, Murong Yu had a bye. The contestants were all sighing about Murong Yu's luck, but Murong Yu was expressionless. Even if he didn't get a bye, he didn't care. With his strength, he could absolutely strive for the championship. On this day, when Murong Yu once again entered the independent space, his opponent was already there waiting for him. Murong Yu, you are very lucky to be able to reach this step. However, meeting me is the end of your road. Admit defeat. Shen Jingyang sneered as he looked at Murong Yu. Murong Yu looked at Shen Jingyang blandly and said, along the way, I don't know how many people have said this to me, but unfortunately, the ones who reach the end of the road are often those people who said this to me and not me. A cold light flashed across Shen Jingyang's eyes, and he laughed coldly. Since that's the case, then I'll send you away. As he was talking, Shen Jingyang already took a step out. Swoosh! Murong Yu only felt a shadow flash before his eyes, and Shen Jingyang already rushed in front of him, and Shen Jingyang's fist already appeared in front of his head. The speed was extremely fast. Murong Yu's expression did not change. With a thought, the shadow step hall already turned into a stream of flowing light descending from the sky. At the same time, he also retreated backward explosively. Swoosh! The shadow step hall directly landed between him and Shen Jingyang, blocking Shen Jingyang's fist. Bang! After a loud sound, the entire shadow stepping palace was directly blasted away. However, Murong Yu already retreated far away explosively. However, his expression darkened, because in that instant just now, a lot of his soul power was consumed. Shen Jingyang's combat power is already comparable to Deva Realm. Murong Yu's eyes rose with boundless fighting spirit. This was the first person to make him raise his fighting spirit since the competition. There was no choice. The previous opponents were really too weak, making Murong Yu have no fighting spirit at all. Murong Yu was someone who could be easily defeated. How could he have any fighting spirit? It was completely meaningless. Boom! Boom, boom. Shun Jingyang was the most powerful creation realm cultivator that Murong Yu had ever encountered. This person's combat experience was also very rich. The moment he attacked, it was a thunderous attack. Like a storm of attacks, it blew up this part of the world. Murong Yu did not even have the chance to fight back, and could only continuously retreat explosively. Although Murong Yu's strength is terrifying in front of absolute combat power, it's still not enough. Murong Yu's path has probably come to an end. However, it's not shameful to give it to Shun Jingyang for free. It's said that Shun Jingyang's combat power is already comparable to a cultivator who has just broken through to the first stage of the Deva realm. Even if he encounters a first-stage Deva realm cultivator, he has the strength to fight. Even if he loses, Murong Yu is still second. Moreover, after this, Murong Yu's name will probably be famous in the billions of star regions of the mysterious Heavenly Palace. Outside the square, countless cultivators were discussing. No one could be optimistic about Murong Yu. Even the Great Elder and Yin Jingtian were a little nervous. I didn't expect that there would really be someone who has the combat power of the Deva realm at the creation realm. Murong Yu's battle is going to be very difficult. Yin Jingtian said somewhat nervously. The Great Elder nodded slightly. Murong Yu has the combat power of the peak of the creation realm at the 6th stage of the insight realm. And Shun Jingyang is at the peak of the creation realm. It's not strange that he has the combat power of the Deva realm. In terms of potential, Murong Yu definitely beats Shun Jingyang in an instant. What I'm looking forward to now is, after Murong Yu breaks through to the 7th stage of the insight realm, can his combat power reach the 1st stage of the Deva realm? It can't be, Yin Jingtian said somewhat uncertainly. After all, the gap between the Deva realm and the creation realm was too great. If that was the case, Murong Yu would be too shocking. Nothing is impossible. The Great Elder shook his head, a hint of confidence flashing across his eyes. Inside the independent space. You're very strong, but you're not my match, Murong Yu suddenly said as he stabilized the somewhat chaotic power that was bombarded by Shun Jingyang. Haha, Murong Yu, I know your tricks. You want to anger me and make me lose my sense of propriety, and then you turn the tables? Shun Jingyang laughed loudly. Murong Yu was speechless. He was telling the truth. Why did he want to anger him? One had to know that he had only used the power vortex now. He had not used the power of the shadow step, the soul attack, and so on. In fact, from the beginning to the end, Murong Yu had not used the chaos blade. He had not even used any heaven-defying methods, such as invisibility. The big hand grabbed at the void. In the next moment, an incomplete battle saber appeared in Murong Yu's hand. Ah, you want to use this broken weapon to defeat me? Shun Jingyang laughed loudly. Not only that, but even many of the spectators outside could not help but shake their heads. A complete origin artifact could not even exert much power, let alone a broken weapon. Is that so? Murong Yu smiled indifferently. Then, he slashed his blade down at Shun Jingyang from the sky. Boom! A terrifying aura erupted from the chaos blade, filling the entire independent space. Not only that, but the chaos blade also surged out like stormy waves, sweeping toward Shun Jingyang. Before the power could reach him, Shun Jingyang felt that his power was already affected and started to become chaotic. As the chaos blade slashed at him rapidly, the power in his body was greatly affected. Even the space around him became chaotic. What's going on? Shun Jingyang was taken aback. He immediately retreated. At the same time, he forcefully increased his power in an attempt to stabilize the power in his body. However, although he was fast, Murong Yu was not slow either. As the chaos blade slashed down, not only was Shun Jingyang unable to stabilize his power, it became even more chaotic. Sun Sword, Shun Jingyang suddenly roared. Then a huge sword that was emitting a blinding light shot out from his body. The great sun sword swelled with the wind, instantly growing to 3 meters long. A powerful aura erupted from it, and then it slashed down fiercely at the blade of chaos. Boom! In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, the edge of chaos and the great sun sword had already fiercely clashed in the air, erupting with a world-shaking boom. The void around Murong Yu and Shun Jingyang was directly torn apart by the terrifying shockwave. Murong Yu and the sun sword were directly sent flying. Shun Jingyang grabbed the great sun sword in the air. Because of the sun sword, he successfully escaped the attack range of the chaos blade and had a chance to catch his breath. However, what made him feel pain was that the chaos blade had actually made a dent in the high-level sky tier great sun sword. This was his life origin tool, which was extremely powerful. Murong Yu, I'm going to kill you. Shun Jingyang roared with bloodshot eyes. Holding the sun sword in his hand, he slashed at Murong Yu. The power in Shun Jingyang's body surged into the sun sword in his hand like a flood. With the support of this power, the sun sword exploded with a blinding light, and its aura became stronger and stronger. Wong. The sun sword shook violently, and its aura suddenly increased by 100 times. Outside the square, the first elder stood up abruptly, turning pale with fright. Second level, sky, tier, battle prowess. Yes, the sun sword had already been raised to the second level of sky tier. It's over. Murong, you definitely can't withstand this terrifying attack. He might even be killed on the spot. Yin Jingtian also stood up abruptly, his face full of worry. No need to worry. Murong Yu is such a good seedling. The big shots at headquarters won't let anything happen to him. Let's see if Murong Yu can withstand Shun Jingyang's strongest attack. If he can withstand this attack, the exhausted Shun Jingyang won't be his match. The first elder sat down and said in a low voice. However, everyone could see the worry on his face. Chapter 2131. Murong Yu's expression changed drastically. His combat prowess and lethality were terrifying. He could even put up a fight against an ordinary level 1 celestial being cultivator. However, the power that Shun Jingyang unleashed had exceeded level 1 celestial being and reached level 2 celestial being. This was beyond Murong Yu's tolerance. He was powerless to resist. However, although Murong Yu's expression changed, he was not afraid. He could still hold on for a while with level 2 celestial being strength. However, Shun Jingyang was not a true level 2 celestial being cultivator and could not attack for a long time. As long as he could withstand this attack, Murong Yu would win. Shadow Trampling Palace. Incomparably violent soul power crazily surged into the Shadow Step Palace. With the support of this powerful soul power, the Shadow Trampling Palace shook violently and exploded with light that shot up to the sky, meeting the great sun sword head-on. Boom! In the blink of an eye, an earth-shattering sound rang out. At this moment, the entire Shadow Trampling Palace was sent flying. As the master of the Shadow Trampling Palace, Murong Yu's face turned pale in an instant. Blood spurted from his mouth as he flew backward. Plop! After sending the Shadow Trampling Palace flying, Shun Jingyang half-knelt on the ground with one knee. The great sun sword in his hand was stabbed into the ground, no longer emitting a powerful aura. At this moment, the great sun sword was like an ordinary origin artifact. It did not look like a terrifying origin artifact that could unleash the power of a level 2 celestial being. Shun Jingyang half-knelt on the ground, panting heavily with a pale face. The aura in his body was weak, as if his strength had been emptied. At this moment, he was looking at Murong Yu in front of him in shock. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Although the Shadow Trampling Palace was sent flying, it did not seem to be damaged at all. At this moment, it had returned to the sky above Murong Yu's head. As for Murong Yu, although he looked severely injured, his body still emitted a powerful aura. Now, he was slowly walking back toward Shun Jingyang. Murong Yu blocked the attack. Shun Jingyang is finished. Seeing this scene, everyone outside the square had a look of surprise on their faces. They did not expect that Murong Yu was actually able to block Shun Jingyang's shocking attack. Shun Jingyang, on the other hand, had already exhausted all of his energy. Murong, you could easily send him flying out of the isolated space with a single punch. What kind of treasure was Murong Yu's palace? He was actually able to block the power of a second-level heaven tier warrior without being injured in the slightest. Many people's eyes were focused on the stepping shadow palace. However, no matter how they looked at it, they did not know the secret of the Shadow Step Palace. It's over. Shen Jingyang screamed in his heart and slowly closed his eyes. Just as he closed his eyes, Murong Yu's fist landed on his body. With a burst of power, Shen Jingyang was sent flying. After Shen Jingyang was sent flying, Murong Yu's figure also staggered. He spat out a large mouthful of blood and fell to the ground with a plop. Seeing this scene, Shen Jingyang even had the thought of killing himself. If he could persevere a little longer, perhaps first place would be his. Except, was the truth really so? The truth could not possibly be like this. Although it looked like Murong Yu was seriously injured, in reality, Murong Yu did not suffer any harm. All of this was just him faking it. A second-level heaven-tier warrior's attack was indeed horrifying, but could not tear apart the high-rank heaven-tier Shadow Step Palace at all. Of course, Murong Yu's soul was greatly exhausted. This was also inevitable. However, other than his soul force being torn apart, Murong Yu did not suffer any harm at all. The reason why he faked it was like this was because he did not wish to draw too much attention. After all, everything that he displayed now was already too heaven-defying. If it was even more heaven-defying, Murong Yu did not want to imagine what the outcome would be at that time. Furthermore, Murong Yu did not wish to expose all of his trump cards either. Otherwise, if he encountered a heaven-tier elite who knew him well, how could he resist? After taking out a large number of elixirs and swallowing them, Murong Yu sat down cross-legged on the ground and began to recover his strength. At the same time, Elder Qin, who was hosting the competition, rushed into this space at the first moment. Reaching out his hand, Elder Qin was about to heal Murong Yu's injuries. Murong Yu opened his eyes in time and stood up shakily. Elder Qin, I'm fine now. I just need to go back and rest for a while. Murong Yu did not want Elder Qin to heal him. This was because once Elder Qin's power came into contact with his body, Murong Yu's act would be exposed. Therefore, he directly rejected Elder Qin's good intentions. Kid, are you really all right? Elder Qin looked at Murong Yu suspiciously. This was because Murong Yu looked very miserable at this time. Murong Yu nodded heavily and forced a smile. I've already defeated Shen Jingyang. I should be considered first, right? You brat. Elder Qin shook his head helplessly. This guy was already injured to this extent, and he was still thinking about first place? However, he still nodded and announced, in this competition, Murong Yu obtained first place in the Genesis realm level. Phew, the great elder and Yin Jingtian heaved a sigh of relief. Then, both of them looked excited. Murong Yu obtained first place, which meant that their branch would be promoted to a first-class branch. One had to know that the exchanges between the various branches of the mysterious heavenly palace were not regular. Instead, they would only be held once in a long time. In other words, as long as they worked hard, their own strength and the strength of the branch would be increased to the maximum before the next exchange. At that time, perhaps even without Murong Yu, they could still nurture some disciples. Even if those people were far inferior to Murong Yu, they would no longer be at the bottom. Even if they could not continue to be a first-class branch, they were still confident in being a second-class and third-class branch. Murong Yu, are you okay? The Great Elder and Yin Jingtian came outside the independent space. When they saw Murong Yu come out, they asked with concern. Murong Yu shook his head somewhat weakly, indicating that he was fine. You guys sent him back to heal first. After the Celestial Realm competition is over, it's appropriate to award the prize and promote the branch. Elder Qin glanced at the Great Elder and Yin Jingtian indifferently and said. Thus, Murong Yu and the other two bid farewell to Elder Qin, left the square, and flew towards Silverwing Planet. Watching Murong Yu and the other two's figures gradually disappear into the distance, countless people in the square could not help but sigh. They did not expect Murong Yu to be so heaven-defying and abnormal. And the Milky Way branch was so lucky that they actually turned the tables with Murongyu. They rushed from the bottom to a first-class branch in one fell swoop. The rise of the Milky Way branch caused some people to be happy and some to be worried. Of course, the Great Elder and the others were happy, while those who were worried were those who had previously mocked and looked down on the Milky Way branch. For example, the Xuanyu Star Zone branch. At this time, several people in the Xuanyu Star Zone branch wanted to leave here. After all, they had previously mocked the Great Elder and Murongyu. Now that the Milky Way branch had turned the tables, if they wanted to settle accounts with them, they would not be able to resist at all. A first-class branch could directly suppress a ninth-class branch. A first-class branch could even remove the elder candidates of a ninth-class branch. They were really blind. The Great Elder of the Xuanyu Star Zone wished he could give himself 2 big slaps. At this time, he wanted to go to Silverwing Planet and apologize, but he hesitated. On the other side, Murongyu and the other 2 had returned to Silverwing Planet. Murongyu, are you really okay? The Great Elder and Yin Jingtian asked with concern. It was all Murongyu's credit that they could be promoted from a 9th-class branch to a 1st-class branch. Moreover, they sincerely regarded Murongyu as one of their own, so they were very concerned about Murongyu's injuries. Murongyu grinned, his face full of a bright smile. I'm fine. I'll go and heal first. I'll be fine in a few days. As he spoke, his figure flashed, and he entered Hichu Luoshu. Although Murongyu was not injured, it was still necessary to pretend. Furthermore, his soul power had been severely depleted. It was better to use this time to recover his soul power. 3 days later, Murongyu came out of Hichu Luoshu. The first elder and Yin Jingtian sensed it immediately. After 3 days of cultivation, Murongyu's mental state had more or less recovered. Although his power was still a little unstable, it was no big deal. Little did he know that Murongyu deliberately pretended to be like this, making him very tired. If he could, he would rather have a great battle with a first-level Celestial Tier Elite than put on such an act. Alright, now the first place of the first-level Heaven Realm has been announced. It's time for us to go and receive the award. At the same time, it's time for us to advance. Yin Jingtian chuckled, looking very excited. How do we advance? Randomly choose a first-level starfield? Murongyu was a little curious. The first elder shook his head. We didn't choose where we went. It was decided by the headquarters. As for which starfield to go, this time, one of the 2 first-level starfields at the bottom is ours. 1 first place for the Creation Realm and the Heaven Realm. It happened to be the 2 at the bottom. Soon, they arrived at the square. When Murongyu and the other 2 arrived, everyone in the square was already there. Awards ceremony. The top 10 of the Heaven Realm and the Creation Realm had rewards. For the Creation Realm, there were some Heaven Realm level treasures, essence artifacts, natural treasures, and even inheritances, and so on. And the top 10 of the Heaven Realm side were True Self Realm level treasures. They were all treasures that could cross realms. From here, it could be seen that the Heavenly Mystery Palace was very generous. Of course, these treasures might be treasures to the Creation Realm and Heaven Realm people. But to those big shots of the Heavenly Mystery Palace, it was extremely likely to be nothing. Actually, these material rewards were only secondary. The best reward was letting them enter the Heavenly Mystery Mystic Realm. This experience was better than any reward. Chapter 2132. As number 1 in the Creation Realm, Murongyu obtained a Peak Deva Realm inheritance as well as a Peak Deva Realm origin artifact. When Murongyu received this reward, he clearly felt countless envious, jealous, and hateful gazes. To the vast majority of the Heavenly Mystery Palace branches, this reward was extremely important. After all, like the level 9, level 8, and level 7 branches, those disciples simply could not have Peak Deva Realm inheritance and Peak Deva Realm origin artifacts. However, these 2 treasures were dispensable existences to Murongyu. What he valued more was the time to enter the Heavenly Mystery Realm. The 6th to 10th place could stay in the heavenly mystery realm today for a year. The 5th place had 2 years, while the 4th place reached 3 years. And if it was the 3rd place, the time to stay in the secret realm would skyrocket to 5 years, and the 2nd place would have 10 years. And the 1st place was even more terrifying, the time even reaching a terrifying 100 years. Creation realm and Deva realm rankings. The time to enter the secret realm was the same. In other words, the Deva realm number 1 and Murong Yu both had 100 years. 100 years. The headquarters is really generous enough. After hearing Elder Qin announce the reward, the square was filled with the sound of saliva swallowing everywhere. Forget about those who had the qualifications to enter the secret realm. Although the time was short, they could enter after all. And those who did not have the qualifications to enter, each and every one of them wished they could become Murong Yu and enter the heavenly mystery realm. To every heavenly mystery palace disciple, the heavenly mystery realm was not unfamiliar. That was a magical place, so magical that it turned the founder of the heavenly mystery palace from an ordinary cultivator to a genius. And from then on, the present heavenly mystery palace was established. If they could also enter the heavenly mystery realm and also have the fortuitous encounter of the founder back then, they might become the second founder. This was what everyone thought. However, the heavenly mystery realm was the cornerstone secret realm of the heavenly mystery palace. There were not many people in the entire heavenly mystery palace who had the qualifications to enter. As for these people in the branch, even the head elder did not have the qualifications to enter. Hence, even if they were jealous, there was nothing they could do. After the award ceremony, it was the first place branch's turn to advance. Only then did Murong Yu realize that the champion of the celestial realm was not originally from the first level branch, but was only from the second level branch. Just like him, he was a dark horse. The Tianyuan Star Zone. Great Sun Star Field. The branches of these 2 star fields were the bottom 2 in this competition, so they were directly kicked away. The 2 vacancies were given to the Milky Way star field and another star field. Grand Elder, these 2 star fields are about the same. I prefer the Tianyuan Space Zone. What do you think? After Murong Yu inquired about the 2 first-grade star areas, he looked at the Great Elder and Yin Jingtian. The Heavenly Mystery Palace suppressed 100 million star domains, but only 36 grade 1 star domains. Therefore, these 36 star domains are the strongest branches of the Heavenly Mystery Palace other than the headquarters. In fact, there wasn't much difference between these 36 star fields. In terms of resources, chi of heaven and earth, and cultivators, they were almost the same. Every Class 1 starfield had about the same number of Class 2 to Class 9 starfields. The smallest one had about 2.7 million, and the largest one had more than 3 million. The Great Elder nodded. The Milky Way star zone is under the jurisdiction of the Tianyuan star zone. Since we came from Milky Way star zone, let's go to the Tianyuan star zone. The Great Elder made the decision. After discussing with the Great Elder of the other star field, the Great Elder also chose the Great Sun star zone. Therefore, everyone was happy. Congratulations, Great Elder. From now on, you are the boss of a branch with 3 million stars. Your status and power have skyrocketed. Yin Jingtian laughed and congratulated the Great Elder. The Great Elder also couldn't hide his joy. This is all because of Murong Yu. Murong Yu, no matter whether you have become a disciple of a big shot in the headquarters or not, or have any opportunities in the Heavenly Mystery Secret Land, you will always be the first disciple of our Tianyuan branch. In the Tianyuan Star Zone, your status and power are equal to Yin Jingtian's. Murong Yu turned pale with fright as he looked at the Great Elder. He knew that the Great Elder was the actual controller of a branch, and an elder at the level of Yin Jingtian was the one with the highest power besides the Great Elder. It didn't seem to be a big deal, but it should be known that the Tianyuan Star Zone was not the same as the Milky Way Star Zone before. When it was still the Milky Way Star Zone, there were only a few people in the whole branch. Yin Jingtian's power, and even the Great Elder's power, were of no use. However, The Tianyuan branch was a branch with 3 million stars from level 2 to level 9. As the Great Elder said, even a disciple of a level 1 branch had a higher status and power than the Great Elder of a level 9 branch. Not to mention someone at the level of Yin Jingtian. Even the Great Elder of a level 2 branch was at the same level as Yin Jingtian. As for the Great Elder of a level 3 branch, then sorry, Yin Jingtian's status was higher than his. Morongyu, you don't have to refuse. It's all because of you that we have what we have today. Take these as our way of repaying the debt of gratitude. And you can exercise the power of an elder, but you don't need to do anything, the Great Elder said in a deep voice. Morongyu was startled, then nodded. Since the Great Elder had decided, then he wouldn't refuse. And this identity was extremely useful to him. Morongyu, do you plan to enter the Tianji secret realm now or later? The Great Elder asked. Those who had obtained the right to enter the Tianji secret realm could enter it at any time. And there was no limit to the time each time they entered, but it could be accumulated. In other words, Morongyu's 100 years could be divided into 100 times, and each time he entered, he could enter for a year. Or he could enter for more times. There was no limit to these. The Tianji Palace headquarters only calculated the accumulated time. Once the accumulated time was enough, then Murongyu wouldn't have the qualifications to enter. It was the same for the others, and it could only be them who entered. It was impossible to divide the time and let others use it. Murongyu pondered for a moment. Before he answered, Elder Qin's voice already sounded. Murongyu, don't leave first. Our 7 stars Great Elder wants to see you. 7 stars Great Elder? 7 stars Great Elder. Hearing these 5 words, Murongyu was just stunned, because he didn't know what a 7 stars Great Elder was at all. But the Great Elder and the rest were greatly shocked. 7 stars Great Elder, which was also the 7 Great Elders, Heavenly Jade, Light Shaking, and the rest. They wanted to summon Murongyu. Murongyu already attracted their attention. They believed that the summon this time might be related to accepting a disciple. When Elder Qin was talking, the number 1 person in the Deva realm also looked at Elder Qin with a look of hope. But he was disappointed. Elder Qin didn't look like he was talking to him at all. In other words, the 7 stars Great Elder only summoned Murongyu and didn't have a share. In other words, in terms of potential, he was far inferior to Murongyu. A resentful gaze was cast on Murongyu, and Murongyu instantly felt it. Following the gaze, he just happened to see the disciple of the Great Sunstar Field, who was also the number 1 in the Deva realm this time, looking at him with a resentful gaze. A cold light flashed in the depths of Murongyu's eyes. Was he being unjustly implicated? He didn't have any interaction with him at all. Okay? This guy resented him just because the 7 stars Great Elder didn't summon him? This hearts I could also cultivate to the peak of the Deva realm. However, although a trace of killing intent surged in Murongyu's heart, there was no change on the surface. This guy was narrow-minded and was at the peak of the Deva realm. The gap between them was too big. Now was not the time to have a conflict. Otherwise, if they encountered each other, it would be a tragedy. Okay, Elder Qin, I'll go with you to see the 7 stars Great Elder. Great Elder, you guys go back first. Move the distribution to the Tianyuan star field. At the same time, remember to look after the solar system for me. After Murongyu gave the order, he left with Elder Qin. The Great Elder and Yin Jingtian also hurriedly left the Tianji star field and teleported back to the Milky Way star field. Murongyu, the 7 stars Great Elder, is waiting in the main hall. You can go in by yourself. Elder Qin led Murongyu to the front of a main hall in the headquarters. After motioning for Murongyu to go in alone, he left. The 7 stars Great Elder didn't summon him, so he wasn't qualified to enter this main hall. Murongyu took a deep breath, then pushed open the door of the main hall and walked in. He glanced around and found that there were 8 people in the main hall. Aren't there only 7 stars Great Elders? Why are there 8 people? A hint of doubt arose in Murongyu's heart. When he bid farewell to the Great Elder had already sent the information of the 7 stars Great Elder and the others into his mind. Therefore, he had some understanding. Morongyu greets the great elders and this senior. Morongyu could recognize the Seven Stars' great elder, but he couldn't help but recognize the man sitting upright on the main seat. Morongyu, this is Ancestral Master Tian Shu. Hurry up and greet him. At this moment, Ancestral Master Tian Shu looked at Morongyu and said in a deep voice, Ancestral Master Tian Shu. Morongyu was shocked. Tian Shu, Tian Xian, and the others were the second-generation ancestral masters of the occult mystery palace. Their status was second only to the founding ancestral master of the occult mystery palace. Now, Ancestral Master Tian Shu appeared here. Was it because of him? Thousands of questions flashed through his mind, but Morongyu still bowed. Haha, boy, no need to be so polite. I only want to ask you one thing now. Are you willing to acknowledge me as your master? Ancestral Master Tian Shu laughed and asked. Morongyu's body trembled violently. Ancestral Master Tian Shu wanted to accept him as a disciple. Ancestral Master Tian Shu was at least in existence at the peak of the true self realm. He might even be a terrifying existence at the selfless realm. If he acknowledged this person as his master, he could do whatever he wanted in the occult mystery palace. Even if he left the occult mystery palace's sphere of influence, he could still do whatever he wanted. Why? Not willing? Seeing that Morongyu didn't answer and was just in a daze, Ancestral Master Tian Shu couldn't help but ask. Tian Shu couldn't help but ask. Before Morongyu could answer in time, a loud laugh came from outside the main hall. Of course not. Chapter 21:33. Before he finished speaking, 6 figures had already appeared in the main hall and appeared in Morongyu's line of sight. Morongyu's heart shuddered. Although these people didn't exude a powerful aura, one could tell at a glance that they weren't simple. At the very least, they were on the same level as Tian Shu. This was because Morongyu had already seen the expressions of the Seven Stars' Great Elder and the rest, as well as Tian Shu's surprised expression. Fekta, Tian Xian, why are you here? Tian Shu, who was sitting on the main seat, looked at the newcomers in surprise. It turned out that these 6 people were Tian Shu's fellow disciples. Fekta, Tian Xian, Kai Yang, and the rest. They were all terrifying existences at the true self realm and even the selfless realm. Tian Shu, you're still so sinister. If you can come here, can't we? A man laughed loudly. Morongyu recognized that this person was the one who spoke just now. He wondered which one of the 7 stars it was. Tian Shu's expression changed abruptly. Morongyu is already my disciple. You didn't come here to fight for him, right? As he spoke, Tian Shu took a step forward and came to Morongyu's side, looking at Fekta and the rest warily. Morongyu's face darkened. When did he agree to be Tian Shu's disciple? He didn't even have a chance to speak and express his wishes. Okay? However, it seemed that all the 7 stars wanted to take him in as their disciple. Was he really that attractive? Morongyu pondered in his heart and didn't say anything. He just looked at Tian Shu and the rest quietly. Tian Shu, don't be so shameless. You just expressed your wishes. Morongyu hasn't answered yet. The man who spoke earlier continued and looked at Morongyu at the same time. Morongyu, I'm Fekta of the 7 stars. Are you willing to be my disciple? If you become my disciple, I'll definitely focus on nurturing you. Morongyu, although I have only accepted female disciples, I can take you as my disciple and focus on nurturing you. The beautiful woman looked at Morongyu and grinned like 100 flowers blooming. She was definitely the only female among the 7 stars, Tian Xian. Morongyu, if you take me as your master. The others also scrambled to speak. Tian Shu's face darkened as he looked at the crowd speechlessly. He had already taken action a long time ago, but there was no way to get rid of these people. A helpless expression appeared on Morongyu's face. He didn't even have the thought of becoming a disciple, all right? These people wanted to take him in as a disciple, and they fought to take him in as a disciple. Did he ask for his opinion? However, if Morongyu did not agree, how could he live up to the enthusiasm of these people? However, if he agreed, who would he agree to? Whose disciple would he be? Murong Yu knew how terrifying the 7 stars were. As the Heavenly Mystery Palace's second-generation disciples, their strength and other aspects were only second to the Heavenly Mystery Palace's founder. If he became their disciple, he could absolutely do whatever he wanted in the Heavenly Mystery Palace. Of course, Murong Yu did not wish to do so either. He could only cultivate quietly. However, if he became their disciple, the resources he would receive would definitely be very terrifying. Murong Yu, how is it? Who do you want to acknowledge as your master? The 7 people looked at Murong Yu with hopeful gazes. It was as if they were not taking in a disciple, but acknowledging a master. It was no wonder. Murong Yu's potential was seriously too terrifying. If they taught him properly, surpassing them would not be an issue at all given time. The 7 elders fell silent when they saw 7-star looking like he wanted to fight over Murong Yu, even if it meant that he would have to fight over him. At this time, they did not have the right to interrupt at all. If they dared to speak, they would probably be sent flying by Tian Shu's fist. This is difficult. Murong Yu looked at everyone, his face revealing a difficult expression. Everyone's hearts stirred, thinking that it was difficult for Murong Yu to make a decision. In reality, it was indeed difficult for Murong Yu to make a decision, because he did not want to acknowledge a master. Murong Yu, acknowledge me as your master. I can guarantee that I'll help you break through to the creation realm, Deva realm, in the shortest time possible, even the true self realm. I'll absolutely do my best to teach you and won't slack off at all. Tian Shu said with a smile on his face. Seeing the situation, the other 6 people also opened their mouths one after another, promising Murong Yu all sorts of benefits. The difficult expression on Murong Yu's face became more and more pronounced. In fact, his face even darkened. Looking at their stance, they would not stop until they acknowledged a master today. This was his first time seeing these people accepting a disciple as if they were acknowledging a master. I can acknowledge you as my master, but I have a condition. Murong Yu looked at 7-star and said solemnly. Everyone hurriedly nodded. Not to mention that Murong Yu had one condition. Even if there were more conditions, they would also agree. First, I'll acknowledge you as my master, but I don't want to have my freedom restricted. I can enter and exit the Heavenly Mystery Palace at will. When to cultivate, when to go out to train, I'll make my own decisions. You guys can't force me to do what you want to do. Everyone nodded repeatedly. This is inevitable. We'll absolutely respect your decision. Second, although I'm currently a disciple of the Heavenly Mystery Palace, even if I acknowledge you guys as my masters, you have to allow me to continue developing my own faction. After all, I've come all this way, and I also have my own faction and sect. Of course, I won't use any of the Heavenly Mystery Palace's resources to develop my own sect. Murong Yu stated another condition. This condition was extremely important. After all, no matter how powerful the Heavenly Mystery Palace was, he was also just a disciple of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. However, Shenzhen was different. Shenzhen was his blood, sweat, and tears. He wouldn't give up on his direct faction. If Tian Shu and the others didn't agree, Murong Yu wouldn't acknowledge them as his masters at all. This, 7-star's face revealed hesitation. This was their first time encountering such a thing. Many disciples of the Heavenly Mystery Palace were disciples of other factions, and they were even sect masters. But after entering the Heavenly Mystery Palace, their factions would be incorporated into the Heavenly Mystery Palace and become a subsidiary faction of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. Okay, I can agree to this condition of yours. Tian Shu was the first to make a decision. The others were greatly shocked and also hurriedly agreed. It was as if they were afraid that Murong Yu would acknowledge Tian Shu as his master. I only have these 2 conditions for now. If there are other conditions, I'll add on in the future. Murong Yu's face darkened. Murong Yu's conditions were truly abnormally many. He still had to add on in the future. However, since you guys have all agreed, how should I acknowledge you as my master? Murong Yu is in a difficult spot again. Your strengths are about the same. How should I choose? Why don't I acknowledge the 7 of you as my masters? You guys are all my masters. How about it? Murong Yu said with a chuckle. This was his wishful thinking. 7 stars were very powerful. Each one was on par with each other, without much difference. Actually, it was the same no matter who he acknowledged. But if he acknowledged the 7 of them as his masters, Murong-Yu could maximize the benefits. After all, having 7 people as his masters was much better than having 1 person as his master. Hearing that, Tianshu and the others were stunned. And the 7 stars head, Elder, and the others also looked at Murong-Yu with astonished gazes. This punk was seriously too greedy, right? He actually wanted to acknowledge 7 people as his masters. This was absolutely the Heavenly Mystery Palace's first time, and probably the only time in history. After all, if it were anyone else, 7 stars wouldn't take a liking to them at all. Even if they took a liking to him, they would be wild with joy. Why would they still have conditions? Even requesting the 7 of them to be his masters? Of course, Murong-Yu is also the only disciple that even the 7 stars took a liking to. Even the 7 stars even fought over him. This suggestion isn't bad. Since none of us are willing to submit to anyone, then let's teach together. What do you guys think? Tianshu started laughing loudly. Good. This suggestion isn't bad. With the 7 of us teaching, it's better than one of us teaching no matter what. Then let the 7 of us teach an earth-shaking disciple together. Tianji also started laughing loudly. The other 5 people also smiled and nodded. They actually agreed. This time, it was Murong-Yu's turn to be shocked. He didn't expect that these people would actually agree to such a preposterous thing. However, this also indirectly showed how terrifying Murong-Yu's potential was. Even if they became Murong-Yu's masters together with the others, they also had to take Murong-Yu in as their disciple. Punk, what are you still in a daze for? Still not paying respects to your masters? Tianshu glared at Murong-Yu. Murong-Yu immediately reacted and immediately bowed solemnly to pay respects to his masters, to the 7 people. Since these 7 people were Murong-Yu's masters, Murong-Yu had to give them sufficient respect. Furthermore, these 7 people's strengths were all rather formidable. They were worthy of Murong-Yu acknowledging them as masters. Junior brother, congratulations. Congratulations. After Murong-Yu bowed, the 7 stars head elder and the rest came over to congratulate with complicated expressions. Originally, Murong-Yu was going to become their disciple, but in a blink of an eye, he actually became their little junior brother. Life was really full of surprises everywhere. The 7 of you, as eldest senior brothers and eldest senior sisters, must protect your little junior brother. If I find out that you guys made things difficult for Murong-Yu, don't blame me for not being courteous. Tianshu glared at the 7 elders and said in a deep voice. The 7 elders' hearts trembled, and they hurriedly said, Murong-Yu is our little junior brother. We won't let him suffer. Murong-Yu took a look. Were they going to groom him like a flower in a greenhouse? How could this do? Hence, he hurriedly said, Master, senior brothers and senior sisters, I don't wish to reveal my identity for the time being. I still need the experience that I should have. If you guys protect me to the extreme, how can I grow? Furthermore, what I need is not some protection, but experience and adventure. Therefore, if there are any mystic realms and such activities, remember to give me a share in advance. Good. This is my disciple. Tianshu laughed and slapped Murong-Yu's shoulder heavily, nearly slapping Murong-Yu's entire person into the ground. Master, you have to be gentle next time. Otherwise, I'll be slapped to death by you. Murong-Yu rolled his eyes and said with a grimace. Chapter 2134. As the Heavenly Mystery Palace's second-generation disciple, one of the Heavenly Mystery Palace's strongest powerhouses, 7 stars didn't just have powerful strength. Pill refinement, artifact refinement, divination, etc. Each person had a side that they were good at. Murong-Yu already acknowledged a master. Furthermore, 7 stars agreed to all of his conditions. But 7 stars also had a condition. That was, after acknowledging a master, Murong-Yu must stay in the Heavenly Mystery Palace for at least 70 years, which was also to say that each of the 7 stars had to teach Murong-Yu for 10 years. Regarding this, Murong Yu had no objection. Just 70 years, it was just a blink of an eye to him. And the 7 stars each had different aspects that they were good at. For Murong Yu to be able to learn their things, it would only be beneficial to him. Fekta was the eldest senior brother among the 7 stars. He was the first disciple to acknowledge the Heavenly Mystery Palace's founder as master. He was good at pill refinement. At this time, Murong Yu and Fekta were on planet Fekta. Murong Yu, your pill refinement ability already exceeded my expectations. Looking at the essence artifact that Murong Yu refined, Fekta could only use astonishment to describe it. If not limited by realm and power, otherwise, Murong Yu could absolutely refine the same kind of essence artifact as him. Furthermore, in certain aspects, he even had unique insights. Of course, Murong Yu was also not perfect. His refinement technique also had many shortcomings. These shortcomings were all pointed out by Fekta one by one. At the same time, he even gave Murong Yu suggestions to correct them. In 10 years' time, Murong Yu's artifact refinement technique improved significantly. The refined Yuan tools would be even more perfect and would possess even greater power. Virtually all of them were superior grade. In fact, toward the end, Fekta felt that there was already nothing left to teach Murong Yu, because Murong Yu's comprehension ability was seriously too horrifying. What he could teach, Murong Yu already comprehended. Of course, limited to Murong Yu's current realm, he only comprehended some things and was unable to do it yet. Of course, the most important factor was Fekta's experience in refining tools. Who knew how much older Fekta was than Murong Yu? Ever since the founding ancestor of the Heavenly Mystery Palace created the Heavenly Mystery Palace, he had been by his side. Fekta had refined a lot of origin tools since it had started out as a penniless beginner to become a colossus now. It was precisely because of this that he was extremely experienced in refining artifacts. After 10 years of communication, Murong Yu's refining technique had improved by leaps and bounds. Furthermore, after combining Fekta's experience with his own body, he had even taken it a step further. 10 years passed quickly, and Murong Yu had finished his apprenticeship. Thus, he left the Fekta planet and came to the Merak planet. Tianxian was the only woman among the 7, and all her disciples were female. Therefore, the entire Fekta planet was filled with women. These women were very curious about Murong Yu's arrival. However, none of this affected Murong Yu. Murong Yu went straight to Tianxian and began refining pills. Artifact refining, pill refining. This was a skill that Murong Yu already knew in the first place. However, refining pills was even more repetitive than refining artifacts. It was much more complicated. After all, refining artifacts only needed to outline the array formation inside. Furthermore, there were not many materials that could be used for refining artifacts. But pills were different. There were simply too many natural treasures that could be used for refining pills. And the matching of natural treasures was also a form of knowledge. In fact, recognizing natural treasures and various medicinal herbs was also a form of knowledge. In the beginning, Tianxian did not teach Murong Yu alchemy directly. Instead, he gave him a book that recorded hundreds of millions of medicinal herbs and natural treasures. These were all the medicinal herbs that Tianxian could collect. To refine pills, one had to recognize the herbs first. With one look, it was incredible. Many plants that looked like weeds were actually all treasures. In fact, many medicinal herbs were overlooked by Murong Yu. In the book, not only did it introduce the names of the medicinal herbs, there were also realistic pictures, as well as the places where these medicinal herbs might appear. Most importantly, what kind of pills could these medicinal herbs be used to refine? There were also complete and incomplete pill formulas. Murong Yu discovered that as long as they were matched well, any medicinal herbs could be refined into different kinds of pills. In 10 years, Murong Yu's knowledge increased exponentially. His alchemy techniques also became more proficient and powerful. After refining artifacts and pills, what Murong Yu needed to cultivate was divination. Deduction of the mysteries of heaven was a very mysterious algebra. Murong Yu could already divine divination previously, but it was only relying on the 9 syllables Dharma's all-character formula. In reality, his comprehension of divination was not much. Without the all-character formula, he could not divine divination at all. However, Tian Quan could. Among the 7 of them, Migres specialized in divination. Furthermore, his divination ability had reached the acme of perfection. It was rather terrifying. Exchanging pointers, Murong Yu had benefited immensely. In the past, he could only circulate the all-character formula to passively divine. Now, even if he did not circulate the all-character formula, he could still divine. Furthermore, by fusing what he had learned from the Migres body with the all-character art, his ability to deduce the heavenly secrets had been greatly enhanced. Although it was not as good as Tian Quan, that was because Tian Quan had been immersed in this path for too long. Furthermore, his own strength also had a great restriction on divination. In the past, Murong Yu could only deduce the heavenly secrets of himself or those related to him. But now, he could casually divine anyone's divination. The sense of danger in his team became more and more intense. Alioth, Alcade, Mizar, W. 70 years passed in the blink of an eye. Murong Yu had already gone through 7 stars training and learned many things. Refining artifacts, refining pills, divination, cultivation, physical body cultivation, and even all kinds of astronomy, geography, and so on. In short, in these 70 years, although Murong Yu's realm and combat strength did not improve, but in other aspects, it was not an exaggeration to say that he had been reborn. In the universe, apart from the Heavenly Mystery Palace, there were still many large factions. In fact, some factions even surpassed the Heavenly Mystery Palace. Furthermore, Murong Yu also learned that there was another realm above the selfless realm, Tao. Tao was the end point of all cultivators. Tao was the realm that every cultivator yearned for day and night and wanted to cross even in their dreams. However, 7 stars' understanding of Tao was practically non-existent. After all, they were still an extremely long distance away from Tao. Rising Sun Tao Mansion. Murong Yu immediately thought of the Rising Sun Tao Mansion. Rising Sun Tao Mansion. After all, Rising Sun was also a ferocious person who comprehended Tao. That level of existence should be about the same as Chaos Controller, right? In fact, Murong Yu felt that Chaos Controller should be the realm of sublimation after comprehending Tao to the extreme. Of course, Murong Yu did not know whether that was the case or not. However, he believed that he would know the result very soon. He had this confidence. Furthermore, from the bits and pieces that 7 stars vaguely revealed, Murong Yu guessed that the founder of the Heavenly Mystery Palace might have already stepped into this realm of Tao. However, due to the lack of understanding of Tao, Murong Yu did not know the specifics either. However, this also proved the terror of the Heavenly Mystery Mystic Realm. One must know that before the founder of the Heavenly Mystery Palace entered the Heavenly Mystery Mystic Realm, his aptitude was ordinary. Murong Yu, you can enter the Heavenly Mystery Mystic Realm at any time. Although there are countless fortuitous opportunities inside the Heavenly Mystery Mystic Realm, it is also filled with dangers. Over the years, many people have already perished inside the Heavenly Mystery Mystic Realm. Therefore, you have to be careful. This was Murong Yu's warning to him. They were unwilling for Murong Yu to die prematurely. They wanted to nurture Murong Yu into an existence at the level of Tao. With Murong Yu's terrifying potential, it was very likely that he would comprehend Tao and step into the ranks of the strongest in the entire universe. Murong Yu did not intend to enter the Heavenly Mystery Mystic Realm right now. Although he was rather curious about the Heavenly Mystery Mystic Realm, it was filled with dangers. However, there were many dangers inside. What if he really died? Therefore, Murong Yu had to make all the necessary preparations before entering the Heavenly Mystery Mystic Realm. 70 years had passed. Murong Yu bid farewell to 7th Great Master and left the Heavenly Mystery Palace. Although he had already become a disciple, his identity had not been leaked. Apart from 7 stars and the 7 stars Great Elder, no one knew his identity. However, he had an identity token and the token of Tianyuan Star's own disciple. After leaving Murong Yu's heavenly mystery palace, Murong Yu used Hichu Luoshu's teleportation and returned directly to the solar system. Although the heavenly mystery palace's Milky Way branch had changed, the solar system did not change much. After all, the Great Elder and the others had been promoted to a first-class branch. Who would dare to touch the solar system? Not to mention the Great Elder. Even Murong Yu's identity could suppress a lot of elders of the 8th and 9th level branches. Destiny's realm had not broken through, and Murong Yu's skeleton was still in seclusion. Therefore, the Milky Way star zone was quite peaceful. However, Murong Yu could feel a sense of danger lurking within. The source of the crisis was the skeleton. Murong Yu guessed that the skeleton should be able to break through to the 3rd level of the celestial realm. Once that happened, the first thing he would do would be to kill Destiny and then destroy the Rome family in the solar system. This made Murong Yu feel pressured. Of course, he could ask the people of the Heavenly Mystery Palace to kill the skeleton. However, Murong Yu did not want to do that. He wanted to use his own strength to fight against the skeleton. Unfortunately, none of the 7 stars of the Heavenly Mystery Palace was a soul cultivator. Murong Yu could not communicate with others about soul cultivation and could only rely on himself. And 70 years was not enough for Murong Yu to improve his soul by a small realm. At the current speed, it would take at least 10,000 years to improve his soul to the 7th level of the Insight realm. This could not be helped. Although the speed at which the 3 soul balls absorbed soul power had increased. However, the higher the realm, the more terrifying the soul power needed. 10,000 years was just a blink of an eye for them. However, who knew if the skeleton would break through within these 10,000 years? Murong Yu felt that it was time to go out and look for opportunities. However, before leaving, he had to improve everyone's strength. Chapter 2135. The heaven and earth essence energy in the solar system was not high, and it was impossible to produce a cultivator of the celestial realm. Shangzhen and the others needed to improve their strength quickly. They had to leave the solar system and go to a higher-level star field. However, now was not the right time. Murong Yu was a 7 stars disciple of the occult Mystery Palace and was considered a 3rd-generation disciple. He was of the same generation as the 7 stars Great Elder. However, he was not willing to use the resources of the occult Mystery Palace to nurture Shangzhen's disciples. After all, he would be criticized if he did that. Moreover, this would create a certain dependence on him, and he would gradually lose the motivation to work hard. Fortunately, the heaven and earth essence energy in the solar system was not very good. In fact, the heaven and earth essence energy in the entire Milky Way star field was not good. However, Murong Yu had the Rising Sundown Mansion. All the core members of Shangzhen had been sent to the Rising Sundown Mansion to cultivate by Murong Yu. As for the ordinary disciples, sorry, Murong Yu would not bring all of them to the Rising Sundown Mansion. After all, they were not qualified. After all, Shangzhen had too many ordinary disciples. If they all enjoyed the Rising Sundown Mansion, the treasures in the Rising Sundown Mansion would be exhausted. That was a scene that Murong Yu did not want to see. As long as he nurtured Shangzhen's core members, then Shangzhen would naturally thrive. While he was cultivating, Murong Yu continued to impart his cultivation experience to him. Moreover, during this process, Murong Yu also took the opportunity to improve his cultivation and physical body to level 7 of the profound underworld realm. This was already the limit of what he could improve now. Before his soul improved, his cultivation and physical body could not continue to improve. Of course, his lethality could still be improved. The power vortex and the soul vortex. However, regardless of whether it was the power vortex or the soul vortex, they both required powerful strength as a foundation. Otherwise, it would be impossible to integrate more vortexes. 10,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. During these 10,000 years, nothing major happened in the Milky Way star field. Skeleton was still cultivating in seclusion. Without Skeleton, the Skeleton Bandit group committed all kinds of evil in the Milky Way star field, causing the wrath of the heavens and the resentment of the masses. However, they did not go too far. Thus, the mysterious heavenly palace did not take action to eliminate them. Of course, this was also because the Skeleton Bandits didn't touch the solar system and the Rong family. Otherwise, even if Murong didn't make a move, the Tianji Palace's Milky Way branch would have made a move to wipe out the Skeleton Bandits. 10,000 years wasn't a long time, but it wasn't short either. Although Tian Ming, the strongest existence in the second level of the Heaven Realm, had not broken through to the third level of the Heaven Realm, he was still the one with the highest realm in Murong Yu's group. Apart from Tian Ming, Shenzhen did not have a second Heaven-tier powerhouse. There was nothing they could do about it. There were only 11 Celestial Realm experts in the entire Milky Way star field, excluding the many elders of the Tianji Palace. Although Shenzhen had the backing of the Rising Sundown Mansion, the time was too short. Even if Zhao, Jiqing, and the others had heaven-defying aptitudes, it was impossible for them to rush to the Celestial Realm in such a short time. However, although Zhao, Jiqing, and the others had not rushed to the Celestial Realm, they had already rushed to the high-level Genesis Realm. 9th level Genesis Realm. This was Zhao Jiqing's realm. She was the one with the highest realm in Shenzhen. Apart from her, Yu Mengqing, Mulue, Kurlan, Sidu Xian, and the others had already rushed to the high-level Genesis Realm. Their aptitudes were already heaven-defying. Although they were not as good as Murong Yu, they had already killed a large number of so-called geniuses. Apart from the 5 of them, Murong Xian and the others, who had just left Shenzhen not long ago, had also soared in strength and had already rushed to the Insight Realm. As long as they were given time, it would not be a problem for them to rush to the Genesis Realm. Of course, the strength of the others in Shenzhen, such as Duanmu Qing, Zhang Ao, and the others had also greatly improved. At the very least, they had reached the Insight Realm. In fact, some of the better aptitudes had already reached the Insight Realm. For example, Li Feng and the others, their aptitudes were not very good. However, because of their relationship with Murong Yu had poured a lot of resources into them, allowing them to break through to the Rebirth Realm. When one reached this level, they were truly immortal and indestructible. However, Shenzhen's strength was only average in the Milky Way star field. It was still impossible to fight against the Skeleton Bandits directly. Of course, Murong Yu did not think of using Shenzhen to fight against the Skeleton Bandits. That was unrealistic. Unless he was given another 100,000 or even a few 100,000 years, then he would have confidence. In fact, in these 10,000 years, the one whose strength had improved the fastest was Murong Yu. In 10,000 years, Murong Yu's cultivation and physical body did not improve again. He was still at the 7th stage of the Insight Realm. However, the energy vortex had already merged with 4 small vortexes. Originally, Murong Yu's combat strength was already a threat to cultivators at the 1st stage of the Heaven Realm. Now, after breaking through, he was even more confident that he could directly kill ordinary cultivators at the 1st stage of the Heaven Realm. His strength had skyrocketed. However, after 10,000 years of cultivation, this was not the only thing that had broken through. Murong Yu's soul had also finally broken through. From the original 6th stage of the Insight Realm to the 7th stage of the Insight Realm, his cultivation, physical body, and soul had already broken through to the 7th stage of the Insight Realm. This allowed Murong Yu's combat strength to directly increase to the terrifying 1st stage of the Heaven Realm. If he added the energy vortex, Murong Yu could basically defeat or even kill most cultivators at the 1st stage of the Heaven Realm. However, because it had not been long, his soul had broken through. However, the soul vortex could only merge with 2 vortexes and could not merge with more. Otherwise, if he merged with 3 vortexes, his soul's lethality would also undergo a qualitative change. Perhaps he could kill cultivators at the second stage of the heaven realm. In any case, with the energy vortex and the soul vortex, Moronyu's combat strength was even stronger than before. I believe it won't be long before my soul can merge with 3 small vortexes. Feeling the powerful soul, Moronyu's face revealed a smile. However, the higher the soul realm, the longer the time needed to break through to the next stage. From the 7th stage of the insight realm to the 8th stage, I'm afraid it will take hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years. Moronyu muttered to himself gloomily. If this sentence was heard by others, would they be so angry that they would send Moronyu flying with a punch? For experts at their level, a seclusion could easily last a reincarnation cycle, or even more. 1,000,000 years was just a blink of an eye. To be able to break through to the next stage in the blink of an eye was a dream that many people dreamed of but could not realize. But Moronyu actually thought it was too slow. It's time to leave the Shenyang Dao mansion. Moronyu paused his cultivation and then led everyone out of the Shenyang Dao mansion. Even he could not cultivate all the time. This would cause the foundation to be unstable. Even if he had tyrannical strength, he would not be able to exert the combat strength that he should have. The correct way to cultivate was not to blindly cultivate, but to cultivate and experience at the same time. In this way, one could constantly consolidate one's cultivation and enhance one's experience at the same time. After leaving the Shenyang Dao mansion, everyone went to experience the world. Moronyu was the only one who had nothing to do. However, he did not really have nothing to do. Instead, he continued to cultivate and try to merge more energy vortexes and soul vortexes to increase his lethality. However, before he succeeded in his cultivation, a message from the Grand Elder asked him to leave the solar system. The Tianyuan star zone was one of the 36 first-level star zones of the mysterious Heavenly Palace. Since Moronyu had won the first place in the Genesis Realm competition, the original Milky Way branch had successfully been promoted and became the Tianyuan branch. After receiving the message from the Grand Elder, Moronyu left the Milky Way star zone as soon as possible and flew toward the Tianyuan star zone. The Tianyuan star zone governed about 3 million star zones of various sizes and was extremely far away from the Milky Way star zone. Since he could not use the Hichu Luo Shu to teleport, Moronyu could only rely on the teleportation formations between star zones. Fortunately, he had the identity token of a disciple of the Tianyuan branch. Because of this token, Moronyu's status was higher than that of the Grand Elders of some low-level branches. Moreover, as long as he was in the star zone governed by the Tianyuan branch, he would be unimpeded. Even so, it took Moronyu a full year to reach the Tianyuan star zone from the Milky Way star zone, and this was only within the Tianyuan star zone. What if it was within the entire mysterious Heavenly Palace? It should be known that the mysterious Heavenly Palace was not the entire universe. In the entire universe, there were more forces like the mysterious Heavenly Palace, or even countless forces more powerful than the mysterious Heavenly Palace. How big was this universe? Who are you? Stop right there. As soon as Moronyu set foot on the gate of the Tianyuan branch, he was stopped by a person. I am a disciple of the Tianyuan branch. I need to see the Grand Elder for an urgent matter. As he spoke, Moronyu threw out his identity token. The person punched Morongyu's identity token and sent it flying. Then he looked at Moronyu with a sneer. How dare you pretend to be a disciple of the Tianyuan branch? You must be tired of living. Get out of here right now. Otherwise, I will kill you. As he spoke, a powerful aura burst out from the person. He was only at the peak of the Genesis realm. However, this realm was definitely enough to suppress Moronyu, who was at the 7th level of the Insight realm. Moronyu's face suddenly darkened. Was this guy an idiot? Couldn't he see if it was real? He even said that he would kill him. Still not getting out of here? The person shouted loudly and threw a punch at Moronyu. You overestimate yourself. Moronyu sneered, took a step forward, and fiercely sent a slap over. How dare you attack me? You are courting death. That person was stunned for a moment before he let out a roar and increased the strength of his fist, intending to kill Murongyu with a single punch. Bang! However, before his fist hit Murongyu had already slapped him away. Chapter 2136. Astonishment. This peak Genesis Realm powerhouse was slapped into the depths of the ground by Murongyu, and he was in a mess. Since when did a level 7 Insight Realm have such powerful battle prowess? He actually sent him flying with a slap? He could not figure it out. On the other side, Murongyu did not care about this fellow and walked straight into the Tian Yuan branch of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. The entire Tian Yuan branch was much more majestic and imposing than the Milky Way branch. However, this place was the same as the Milky Way branch back then. There were not many people walking around at all. Murongyu saw less than 10 people along the way. Looking from afar, Murongyu did not sense any powerful aura. Only the Great Elder's aura was present. The other ordinary elders, such as Yin Jingtian and the others, did not seem to be in the branch. Murongyu felt strange and shot toward the direction of the Great Elder's aura. After a while, he saw the Great Elder in a large hall. Murongyu, you're here? The moment he saw Murongyu, the Great Elder was a little surprised and then somewhat happy. Murongyu nodded his head, then asked about his doubts. Then, after the Great Elder's answer, Murongyu learned what had happened. The current first-level branch, Tian Yuan branch, was the previous 9th-level branch, the Milky Way branch. At that time, the Milky Way branch only had one official disciple, Murongyu. Other than him, there were only the Great Elder, Yin Jingtian, and some outer sect disciples. After becoming a first-level branch, they were qualified to recruit disciples. Moreover, there were many quotas and the restrictions were not that big. However, in 10,000 years, the Tian Yuan branch did not recruit a single disciple. Perhaps because of Murongyu, their requirements for recruiting disciples were too high. However, how many Murongyu were there in the world? Later, the Great Elder and the others also realized this, so they lowered their requirements. However, 10,000 years had passed, and they still could not recruit any disciples. Moreover, what annoyed the Great Elder and the others the most was that although they were a first-level branch, the Great Elder's status was similar to some elders in the Heavenly Mystery Palace headquarters. However, the other branches under the jurisdiction of the Tian Yuan branch were not convinced by the Tian Yuan branch. In fact, the First Elder and the others even suspected that the reason why they were unable to recruit disciples with sufficient talent was the doing of the lower branches. Even the old branch of the Heaven's Origin sector was behind it. After all, the old Tian Yuan branch had been rooted here for too long. Its influence was not something the new Tian Yuan branch could compare with. Even though they had already retreated, their might was still there. Therefore, the Tian Yuan branch could not recruit a disciple with potential. On the contrary, there would always be people pretending to be disciples of the Tian Yuan branch. It was precisely because of this that the scene of Murongyu being blocked happened. Because of these matters, the First Elder and the others were extremely busy. However, this was not the reason why the Great Elder had summoned Murongyu back. The reason why he summoned Murongyu back was, recently, a lot of things have happened in the branches under the Heaven's Origin Division. Some of the level 9 and level 8 branches were even razed to the ground overnight. The First Elder and elders of the branches were all killed. The First Elder said to Murongyu with a gloomy expression. Murongyu turned pale with fright. Raising the branches of the Heavenly Mystery Palace and killing all the disciples of the Heavenly Mystery Palace within the territory of the Heavenly Mystery Palace? Who was so daring? So, Yin Jingtian and the other elders went to investigate this matter? Murongyu said in a deep voice. Yin Jingtian and the others had probably gone to investigate this matter. And the reason why the First Elder was here was only to oversee the branch. Otherwise, if he had also left, no one would know that the Tian Yuan branch had been demolished. However, he did not know why the First Elder had summoned him back. The First Elder nodded and confirmed Murongyu's guess. At the same time, he said, I summoned you back because I want you to investigate this matter. I keep feeling that this matter is not so simple. Although our Tian Yuan branch is in the periphery of the Heavenly Mystery Palace, not everyone dares to touch our branch. Murong Yu's heart sank. He naturally understood the meaning in the First Elder's words. The First Elder suspected that it was the people in the Heavenly Mystery Palace who took action. It was even extremely likely that it was the previous Tian Yuan branch who took action. After all, being forced to demote, if it were Murong Yu and the rest, they would also be unhappy, right? Except the First Elder actually wanted him to go and investigate. This wasn't a joke, right? He knew that each branch's First Elder was a true self-realm-level existence. Even the other elders were at least high-level Deva realm existences too. Even a true self-realm powerhouse was killed. How was Murong Yu, this rookie, going to investigate? He would probably be finished off by the mastermind behind the scenes before investigating anything, right? First Elder, did you inform the headquarters over there about this matter? Let the headquarters send people down to investigate. Murong Yu inquired. The First Elder shook his head. Our Tian Yuan branch just took office, and this happened. If the headquarters knew, wouldn't we be removed immediately? Furthermore, if it was really some people who took action, this is the desired result. Therefore, we have to resolve this matter ourselves. Murong Yu nodded. He agreed with the First Elder's way of doing things. It was just that the current Tian Yuan branch's strength was also too weak. There was no one available at all. He even suspected that apart from the First Elder, the other elders probably did not have anyone who reached the true self-realm. Even the First Elder's realm might not be too high. If the mastermind behind the scenes was too powerful, even the First Elder would probably be obliterated in the end. Murong Yu pondered. He was pondering whether or not to inform 7 stars, or the 7 stars, First Elder, and the rest. Let them take action. With his status in the Heavenly Mystery Palace, he absolutely had this ability to make them take action. However, since the First Elder did not have this intention, Murong Yu also could not overstep his bounds. First Elder, aren't you afraid that I'll be obliterated by that mastermind behind the scenes? Murong Yu said with a smile. He said it rather calmly. Furthermore, he did not seem to have the intention of refusing. A wisp of wisdom flashed across the First Elder's eyes as he looked at Murong Yu. Murong Yu, although I don't know what happened to you at the Heavenly Mystery Palace's headquarters after the competition, I didn't receive it. In fact, no one in the entire Heavenly Mystery Palace received the news that you became a disciple of some important figure. However, you definitely became a disciple of some important figure? I didn't guess wrongly, right? Murong Yu gave a non-committal smile, neither confirming nor denying it. He had acknowledged 7 stars as his master and was a third-generation disciple of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. His identity was very terrifying. However, what did this have to do with the matter that the First Elder asked him to investigate? You're a disciple of some important figure, so I believe that some people have certain misgivings about you. Therefore, you shouldn't be in any danger. Murong Yu rolled his eyes. Currently, apart from 7 stars and the 7 stars First Elder, who else knew his identity? If the mastermind behind the scenes was really someone from the Heavenly Mystery Palace, they would probably obliterate him directly without knowing his identity. So what if they knew? Obliterating Murong Yu without anyone knowing. Even if 7 stars' eyes were omnipotent, he also wouldn't know who killed Murong Yu, right? Therefore, the mastermind behind the scenes absolutely wasn't afraid of Murong Yu. If you're a disciple of some important figure, I believe that important figure must have given you a talisman. Therefore, First Elder looked at Murong Yu with a grin, making Murong Yu call him an old fox in his heart. This old fox had this idea, right? Actually, what I value more is your divination ability and your ability to protect yourself. The First Elder smiled and continued. Although Murong Yu didn't say that he knew divination, in reality, one only had to investigate Murong Yu's past deeds to know that he knew divination. He was very sensitive to danger. Furthermore, First Elder discovered that Murong Yu's life preservation ability was very strong. Even if Murong Yu wasn't accepted as a disciple by some important figure from the Heavenly Mystery Palace's headquarters, he still needed Murong-Yu to participate in the investigation. Moreover, investigations and whatnot require divination the most. What benefits do I get by wasting my cultivation time to investigate these things? Murong-Yu looked at First Elder with a grin. This old fox schemed against him. If he didn't get more treasures, then he would suffer a huge loss. Don't you have a faction? I can make the decision to give your Shenzhen 1/10,000th of the Heaven Yuan branch's income. First Elder seemed to be prepared and said directly, only 1/10,000th? That's too little. Murong-Yu shook his head. 1/10,000th is too little? Our Heaven Yuan branch also needs to pay a portion of tribute to the headquarters. First Elder couldn't help but glare at Murong-Yu. What was with the Heaven Yuan branch's income? Of course, it was the tribute of the close to 3 million branches under their jurisdiction. 3 million branches. The stronger they were, the larger the star field, and the more things they had to pay tribute. Although they only paid tribute once every 1,000 years, the amount each time was quite terrifying. 1/10,000th of the amount was equivalent to the tribute of 300 heavenly mystery palace branches. This was a huge and terrifying amount of wealth, enough for Shenzhen to use. 1%, Murong-Yu said with a beaming smile. However, his words nearly caused the First Elder to fall to the ground. 1% was equivalent to taking away 30,000 branches contribution. No, then you'll have to find someone better qualified. Murong-Yu immediately went on strike and threatened the First Elder. 1% is too much. I can't accept it. 1,000th, no more. First Elder gritted his teeth and could only increase the bargaining chip. Deal. Murong-Yu laughed and immediately agreed. 1,000th of the income was equivalent to the income of 3,000 branches. This was an extremely terrifying amount of resources. In the future, Murong-Yu didn't need to find more resources for Shenzhen. He would have more time to cultivate and go on adventures. Little Fox. First Elder glared at Murong-Yu. Same here. Murong-Yu smiled brightly and didn't feel ashamed at all. However, he also knew that First Elder was sincerely good to him and was just taking the opportunity to help him. Otherwise, forget 1,000th, he wouldn't even give him 100,000th. Chapter 2137. As many as 10 branches have been razed to the ground by the unknown force. The 10 branches were located in different places in the territory of the Tianyuan star zone. Besides, the interval between each star zone being razed to the ground was not very long. Therefore, the Grand Elder speculated that it should be a force that had destroyed the branches, not a single person. Before Murong-Yu was summoned back, Yin Jingtian and the others had been sent out to investigate. However, after they had gone to investigate, another branch had been destroyed. In the end, the Grand Elder had no one to rely on to investigate, and he might leave the Tianyuan star zone because he had to stay here. The Cloud Cave star zone. The Cloud Cave star zone was the branch that Murong-Yu was investigating. It was a level 8 branch. It was a bit stronger than the Milky Way branch before it leveled up. However, it was razed to the ground overnight. No one could escape. They were all killed. After learning about the situation in the Cloud Cave star zone, Murong-Yu left the Tianyuan star zone. Of course, he didn't leave until he took 1,000th of the income of the Tianyuan star zone. After leaving, Murong-Yu didn't go to the Cloud Cave star zone at once. Instead, he went back to the solar system. He had to give the resources to Shenzhen and let Shenzhen's disciples use them. Only then could the resources play their true role. Otherwise, they would be nothing but a pile of dead objects in Murong-Yu's hands. After giving the fundamental crystals and other treasures to Zhao Jiqing and others, he left the solar system again and went to the Cloud Cave star zone. The longer he waited, the less likely he was to find out the truth, and the more dangerous the Tianyuan star zone would be. After repeated transmissions, it took Murong-Yu an entire month to reach the Cloud Cave star field. The Tianji star zone, the Tianji star zone, the Tianji palace. This was the structure of every branch of the Tianji palace in every star zone. And every star zone had a list of 100 talents. It was the same as the list of 100 talents in the Milky Way star zone. All the rules were the same, but the people on the list were different. Morong showed up near the Tianji Mountain directly. The Tianji Mountain in the Milky Way star zone was very busy, because every day, many people would come to see the 100 talents list with their own eyes. However, the Heaven's Fate Mountain in the Cloud Cave star field had been destroyed. Not to mention the 100 talents list, even the Heavenly Mystery Palace had been blasted to smithereens. Only in the vicinity of the original Tianji Mountain were there many people. Friend, can you tell me if this is the Heaven's Secret Mountain? Morong looked at the young man beside him with a blank expression as he asked, "This is Heaven's Secret Mountain. Are you here because of my reputation? It's a pity you're late." If he had come a few hours earlier, he might have been able to see the Heavenly Mystery Palace and the 100 Talents list. He could even become a disciple of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. But now everything was gone. Look, the Heaven's Secret Mountain has been razed to the ground. Maybe you're not fated to die yet. If you become a disciple of the Occult Mystery Palace, you might be blown to smithereens like the Occult Mystery Mountain. At this moment, another person nearby sneered. "I see." Morong pretended to be glad. "Isn't the Occult Mystery Palace the most powerful force in the Cloud Cave star zone? How could it have been razed to the ground? Luckily, I ate it and came. Otherwise, I'm afraid I would have been killed. No matter how strong you are, there will always be someone stronger. Who knows?" Someone said in a low voice. Then, Morong asked many more questions, but no one knew what was going on. There were many people here, so Morong could not use the method of tracing back to the original place to investigate. In fact, if Morong could think of this, the mastermind would definitely have thought of this as well. Even if Morong traced back to the original place, he would not be able to find anything. However, Morong naturally had his ways. Power gathered in his eyes. Morong looked at the ruins of the Heaven's Secret Mountain. Suddenly, rays of aura light of various sizes appeared in his sight. Ignoring the rays of aura light, Morong finally focused on the most powerful rays of aura light. Because no one had seen the Cloud Cave Grand Elder before, Morong could not be sure which ray of aura light belonged to the Cloud Cave Grand Elder. Which ones belonged to the enemy? There were more than 10 rays of aura light that had reached the true self realm. The Cloud Cave star zone is only a level 8 star zone. The Grand Elder should be the only one who has reached the true self realm. Then, the other true self realm experts should be the culprits? Morong thought to himself. Shock gradually appeared on his face. This was the 11th branch of the Heaven's secret sect that had been destroyed. According to the Grand Elder, these 11 branches had been destroyed at about the same time. Moreover, the distance between each star zone was very far. It was absolutely impossible for a single person or a team to destroy this branch before moving on to destroy the next star field. In other words, it was the 11 teams that destroyed these branches. There were more than a dozen true self-realm experts in each team. Then, there were more than 100 people in the 11 teams. More than 100 true self-realm experts? Just thinking about it was enough to make Morong's heart skip a beat. However, since it had started, Morong could only grit his teeth and continue. Otherwise, once the Heaven's secret sect was destroyed, Shenzhen in the solar system might be implicated. Track. Before he knew it, Morong had left the Heaven's secret mountain by following the rays of aura light. After a while, Morong was finally sure that those people might be the dire beasts. 10 people. That was because there were 10 people whose auras had been gone all this time. They had been together all this time. As for the other auras, they gradually spread out in all directions. Of course, Morong could not be sure if the others were the culprits. He did not have the time to track them down yet. He could only choose to follow these 10 people. A few days later, Morong followed the aura to Thousand Mountain Star in the Cloud Cave Star Zone. Swoosh! As soon as Morong stepped in a Thousand Mountain Star, an extremely strong aura of death enveloped his entire heart. Turning pale with fright, he rushed into Hichu Luoshu without hesitation. At the same time, Hichu Luoshu also turned into an invisible particle, floating in the void with billions of other particles, drifting with the waves. Another swoosh sound. The moment Hichu Luoshu turned into a particle, a huge divine mind swept past the particle that Hichu Luoshu had turned into. The divine mind of a true self-realm expert. Murongyu was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. However, what made Murongyu sigh in relief was that the divine intent didn't linger on the Hitu and Luoshu. However, just as he was relieved, he became nervous again, because at this moment, a man in black with a mask on his face appeared next to Hichu Luoshu. In fact, Hichu Luoshu was not far from the man's mouth. Murongyu was almost scared to death. Therefore, he remained motionless and even held his breath. Strange, I felt that someone had entered here just now, but I didn't find anything now. Am I hallucinating? The masked man muttered. His immensely powerful divine sense spread out once again and began to search. However, to Murongyu's relief, the masked man did not search the area around him. Otherwise, Murongyu could not guarantee that Hichu Luoshu would not be found. However, even so, Murongyu was ready to teleport. Once he was found, he would activate Hichu Luoshu's teleportation function and leave this place. Is there really no one? The masked man muttered suspiciously and then left in a flash. However, Murongyu did not immediately come out of Hichu Luoshu. He did not deliberately move Hichu Luoshu. Instead, he lay dormant. Sure enough, half an hour later, the masked man appeared again. After he appeared, the masked man used his divine mind to search the surroundings again, but still did not find anything. It seems that I was too careful. After the masked man said this, he left the place. What a sinister guy. Murongyu and Hichu Luoshu breathed a sigh of relief. However, he still did not leave Hichu Luoshu. Who knew if the masked man would appear a third time? After a full half a day, the masked man did not appear again. Only then did Murongyu dare to confirm that the masked man did not appear again. Therefore, he left Hichu Luoshu. Invisibility. Murongyu turned invisible and slowly flew toward the depths of Qianshan Star. The appearance of the masked man confirmed Murongyu's guess. Now, what he needed to do was to find out the identity of these people and find out how many of them there were. They were all in the realm of true self. They could easily kill him with a finger. Murongyu did not want to take the risk. However, he must keep his promise to others. Moreover, he was confident in his invisibility ability. As long as he was careful, he would not be discovered. Moreover, these people were gathered on Qianshan Star. Could this be their nest? Carefully, Murongyu gradually approached the depths of Qianshan Star. At the same time, 10 extremely strong lights of power appeared in his sight. 10 people, 10 true self-realm experts. Seeing the 10 white lights of power, Murongyu breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. Because after confirming the number of people, he knew that no one would ambush him in the dark. As long as he paid attention to them, he would be safe. Several simple houses appeared in Murongyu's sight. At this time, the 10 lights of power were gathered in one of the buildings. Those people gathered together, they should be discussing something, right? Murongyu pondered for a moment and finally decided to get closer. He wanted to find out the identity of these people. Whoosh! A layer of subtle ripples appeared in the void. Murongyu had successfully stepped through the blockade of the formation and entered it. At this moment, a huge divine mind spread out from the house and seemed to have found something strange. Murongyu immediately stood motionless on the spot, as if an ancient well without any ripples. If he entered Hichu Luoshu at this time, he would cause the air to fluctuate. Wouldn't that be a dead giveaway? Chapter 2138. Murongyu was rather nervous. After all, although he was invisible, he still existed. If the other party's divine sense swept over, they would discover his existence. Invisibility was only concealing one's body so that the naked eye could not see it. It did not mean that one disappeared into thin air. Fourth brother, you're too careful. Boss has already set up restrictions and formations here. Who can break in here? Before that divine sense swept in front of Murong, a voice was heard. At this moment, Murong also felt that the divine sense shooting overstopped. Then it retreated like the tide. Obviously, these people were very confident in the formations and restrictions of their boss. Murong broke out in cold sweat. After standing in place for a while, he continued to walk forward. He needed to see clearly who these people were. However, to his disappointment, even in the house, these people were still dressed in black and had their faces covered. Moreover, these black clothes and masks were not ordinary cloth. They were all special and had been refined. They could block prying eyes. Otherwise, with the sharp eyes of a cultivator at Murong's level, he could see what was inside the cloth. Of course, Murong could also directly send a divine sense over. However, the result would be that he could see the other party's appearance, but the other party would also know that Murong was spying. Boss, are we still going to stay in this damned place? In the house, a masked man suddenly said. These people were of different heights and sizes. Therefore, after Murong compared them, even if he did not see their appearance, he could basically distinguish their identities. The black-clothed man's boss nodded and did not say anything. I don't understand. We've already raised a branch of the Heavenly Mystery Palace, and we've obtained enough. Shouldn't we be able to leave? Although our strength is not bad, if the Heavenly Mystery Palace has experts suppressing us, we'll be in danger. The one who spoke should be the youngest of the 10. Murong's heart moved. The youngest words were worth thinking about. From what they said, Murong was sure that they were not from the Heavenly Mystery Palace. However, if they were not from the Occult Mystery Palace, why would they attack the Occult Mystery Palace's branch? Murong guessed that someone from the Heavenly Mystery Palace might have hired them. Boss, are we going to destroy a few branches of the Heavenly Mystery Palace? The Occult Mystery Palace was too powerful. If we make a move again, I'm afraid that the Heavenly Mystery Palace will find out that it was us who did it. Another black-clothed man said in a deep voice. You guys are worrying too much. This time, we're not the only ones who are taking action. Some other people also made their moves at the same time. Even if the Heavenly Mystery Palace is all-encompassing, how would they know that it was us who found out? Furthermore, the Heavenly Mystery Palace would send someone to suppress this matter. After all, that person doesn't want us to be found out. Otherwise, he might be exposed because of this. Why don't you tell me the name of that person? Murong, who was spying outside the house, muttered in his heart. He could not wait to jump out and ask directly. The conversations of these people had already confirmed Murong's guess. But who was the person they were talking about? There was no doubt that that person was definitely a big shot in the Heavenly Mystery Palace, or the Grand Elder of the original Tianyuan Star Zone. But without evidence, Murong could not investigate. All right, let's wait for the notice. We'll make another order, far away from the Heavenly Mystery Palace's sphere of influence. At that time, no matter how powerful the Heavenly Mystery Palace is, they won't be able to do anything to us, the black-clothed boss said in a deep voice. The others immediately shut up. After that, everyone sat down cross-legged on the spot. One by one, they entered a state of cultivation. This made Murong, who was outside the house, depressed. Murong left the place quietly. In the end, he left Qianshan Star directly. He wanted to take those people down directly and read their memories. But he did not have the strength. If he jumped out, then he would be the one to die. Send a message to the Grand Elder. Let the Grand Elder take action. However, these people were all in the true self realm. The Grand Elder was also an expert in the true self realm. But who was stronger? If the Grand Elder's combat capability was not overwhelming, he would not be a match for these people at all. But anyway, he had done what he promised the Grand Elder. As for how things would develop later, it had nothing to do with him. So, he sent a message to the Grand Elder in the Tianyuan Star Zone about the specific situation. Whoosh! At this moment, a flowing light suddenly appeared out of thin air from the depths of the endless starry sky. Then it tore the endless void and rushed into Qianshan Star. It was so fast that by the time Murong could react, the streak of light had already disappeared. Murong's face was gloomy. That flowing light was obviously the light of the messaging rune. Someone was sending a message to the black-clothed men in Qinshan Star. It should be the message that the black-clothed men had been waiting for. It should be the notice from the big shot in the Heavenly Mystery Palace. Murong, you guessed. As expected, before long, the 10 black-clothed men turned into 10 black flowing lights and shot out of Qinshan Star. Then they quickly disappeared in the endless starry sky. Murong Yu sent a message to the Grand Elder again. Then he followed them without hesitation. These black-clothed men were going to raise another branch of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. However, Murong Yu did not know which branch they were going to. Otherwise, he could have informed the Grand Elder. Now, he could only follow the black-clothed men. When they entered a certain star zone, Murong Yu might know which branch they were going to target. But it would be too late. This time, the branch of the Heavenly Mystery Palace would be raised again. In the Tianyuan Star Zone, the Grand Elder was sitting in the hall with a gloomy face. The entire hall was empty, and there was no one else in sight. At this moment, he was holding the messaging rune that Murong Yu sent him and a lot of soul jade slips that had been broken into pieces. These soul jade slips were all from the elders of the Tianyuan branch. Now, except for Yin Jingtian's soul jade slip, all the other elders' soul jade slips have been broken. That was to say, except for Murong Yu, the Grand Elder, and Yin Jingtian, all the others in the Tianyuan branch have been killed. The Great Elder didn't even need to think to know who had killed his elders. It must be the person behind the scenes, because those elders had been killed while investigating the destruction of the branch. This matter was getting more and more serious. The Tianyuan branch was already in a predicament of having no one to rely on. Now it was even worse. The situation was serious. The Grand Elder could feel that he could no longer suppress this matter. He needed to report it to the headquarters of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. Otherwise, who knew how many more branches would be annihilated? However, what if the person behind the scenes was a big shot in the headquarters? Even if he reported this matter, he was afraid that it would be suppressed. Murong Yu, many elders of the Tianyuan branch have been killed. This matter is beyond the ability of our Tianyuan branch. Also, I feel that this matter should be related to a big shot in the headquarters. Therefore, I hope that you report this matter to your master. Let the headquarters send people down to investigate this matter. Finishing reading the Grand Elder's message, Murong Yu's expression immediately darkened. Actually, you already guessed this result. After all, these people who took action were all true self-realm level existences. It was just that how could Deva Realm Elders be their match? Perhaps reporting this matter was the right choice. Murong Yu mused for a bit and finally sent out a transmission talisman. Heavenly Mystery Palace Headquarters, 7 Stars Hall. Amen. Little junior brother sent me a message. Grand Elder Dubhe reached his hand out and grabbed a stream of flowing light in his hand. But in the next moment, his originally smiling face turned gloomy. Simply preposterous. To actually dare make a move against my Heavenly Mystery Palace branch. Dubhe flew into a great rage. His figure swayed, and he was about to rush out of the 7 Stars Hall. But in the end, he still forcefully suppressed the monstrous fury in his heart and summoned Grand Elder Dubhe, Alcade Grand Elder, and the rest over. Old man Dubhe, what's the matter? Summoned all of us over? After the Alcade Grand Elder entered, seeing that everyone was gathered together, he immediately asked with a frown. Dubhe, Alcade, and the rest were the names of the Heavenly Mystery Palace's second-generation disciples. But it was not just their names either. Among the Heavenly Mystery Palace's 7 branches, each branch's Grand Elder had this name. For example, the Dubhe branch's Grand Elder was also called Dubhe. The Alcade branch's Grand Elder was also called Alcade. As for how to distinguish them from the second-generation disciples, very clearly, the Heavenly Mystery Palace disciples all addressed the second-generation disciples as ancestral masters, while they were Grand Elders. Hence, the 7 Stars Grand Elders also directly called each other by name. Grand Elder Dubhe did not speak. He just passed the news in the transmission talisman that Murong Yu gave him to them. Bastard. After reading it, The 6 people had the same reaction as Dubhe. They were all very enraged. Traitor! If I find out which bastard it is, I'll hack him alive. Alcade Grand Elder roared furiously. Right now, the most important thing isn't to ferret out this mastermind, but to stop those people from continuing to make a move. Otherwise, our branches will continue to be annihilated, although it's only a level 8 and level 9 branch. But they're all branches of our heavenly mystery palace and cannot be blasphemed. Grand Elder Tianxian said in a cold voice. Migres and the rest nodded repeatedly. Migres, your divination of heavenly mystery has already reached a certain level of maturity. Can you deduce their next target? Or even their current location? We want to capture them all in one fell swoop. Kai Yang said as he looked at Migres with a murderous aura. Migres's expression was gloomy, his eyes spitting fire as he said, I'll try. As he spoke, he had already begun to deduce heavenly mystery. However, after a while, he shook his head helplessly. There was no way to deduce heavenly mystery. After all, those people who made a move were not weak. Furthermore, he did not have anything that could help him deduce heavenly mystery right now. Chapter 2139. Can't deduce it. Grand Elder Tian Shu and the others frowned slightly. Should we ask Master and the others? They are very powerful, and their ability to deduce the heavenly secrets is much better than mine. Grand Elder Tian Quan said hesitantly. Let's not for now. If we can't even solve these problems and still have to ask Master and the others, what use are we? We'll solve it ourselves first. If we can't solve it, it won't be too late to ask Master for help. Tian Xian said slowly after pondering for a moment. Grand Elder Yuheng and the others nodded slightly, agreeing with Grand Elder Tianquan's approach. The mastermind behind this matter may have a very high position in the occult mystery palace. I don't want anyone else to know about this except for us. Grand Elder Tianji glanced at everyone and said solemnly. Everyone knew the importance of this matter, so they all nodded. Morong, you can track down those people, so he must have his way. However, those people are all true self-realm cultivators, much stronger than Morong Yu. Furthermore, Morong Yu is our junior brother. If something were to happen to him, we'd have to take action. If anything happens, wouldn't Master skin us alive? So, we must eliminate those people and protect Morong Yu at the same time. In the end, Grand Elder Tian Shu took action personally. He led a group of trusted experts and secretly left the headquarters of the occult mystery palace, rushing to the Tianyuan Star Zone. At this time, Morong Yu had already chased those black-robed men across Star Zones one after another. In the beginning, Morong Yu thought that they would attack the branch of that Star Zone every time they arrived at a Star Zone. But in the end, they didn't attack. Instead, they continued to move forward. The level of the branch was getting higher and higher. Now, they had already appeared in a level 7 Star Zone. A level 7 branch was not comparable to a level 8 or level 9 branch. In a level 7 branch, other than the Grand Elder who was at the True Self Realm, the other elders could also be at the True Self Realm. It was just that there weren't many of them. After all, True Self Realm experts were not common. Green Rock Star Zone, a level 7 Star Zone. After some inquiries, Morong Yu learned that there were 7 True Self Realm experts in the Green Rock branch. Apart from the first elder, there were 6 other elders in the True Self Realm. With the strength of the Black-Clothed Man, if he launched a sneak attack, he might be able to wipe out the entire Green Rock branch in an instant. Morong Yu immediately sent this information to Sky Pivot. He was sure that the Green Rock branch was the next target of the Black-Clothed Men. This was because these people had been in the Green Rock Star Zone for some time. Moreover, the Black-Clothed Men had been sent out in batches to investigate. The men in black didn't attack immediately. After all, they wanted to wipe out the entire Green Cliff branch in one fell swoop. Therefore, they would not make a move before they had a clear understanding of the situation. This gave Morong Yu some buffer time. Morong Yu didn't warn Green Rock branch directly or secretly, because he also wanted to catch all of these black-clothed men in one fell swoop. However, It was impossible to rely only on the experts of the True Self realm in the Green Rock branch. He needed to wait for Great Elder Tian Shu to arrive. In this way, the 10 black-clothed men couldn't escape. Otherwise, they would alert the enemy, and in the end, all their efforts would be in vain. Great Elder Tian Shu's strength was extremely terrifying. Not long after Morongyu sent out the message, they had already arrived at the Green Rockstar Zone and met up with Morongyu. "Morongyu, are you alright?" The first thing he asked when he saw Morongyu was Morongyu. Morongyu grinned. "I'm fine." Great Elder Tian Shu finally let out a sigh of relief. Otherwise, if anything happened to Morongyu, Tian Shu would have a chance to beat him up. The reason was simple. He didn't protect Morongyu, his junior brother, well enough. Moreover, in addition to Morongyu being his junior brother, Tian Shu also liked Morongyu very much. After all, Morongyu's performance was too incredible, and his potential was too terrifying. They really didn't want anything to happen to Morongyu. The black-clothed men are lurking on the Green Rock Star. I guess they'll take action soon. Morongyu roughly explained the black-clothed men's situation. Great Elder Tian Shu nodded and then waved his hand. Everyone flew silently toward the Green Rock Star Zone. Except for Morongyu, the weakest of the people brought by Great Elder Tian Shu was an expert in the advanced realm of True Self. Therefore, they went straight in. The people in the Green Rockstar Zone didn't know what was going on, and no one even noticed. After they appeared in the main hall of the Green Rockstar Zone, the Great Elder and other experts in the True Self realm of Green Rockstar Zone sensed something and appeared in the main hall with vigilance. Great Elder Tian Shu, when he saw Great Elder Tian Shu sitting on the main seat, Great Elder Green Rock Star couldn't help but exclaim in shock. In fact, Morongyu could even see the fear in the depths of his eyes. Great Elder Tian Shu was the third disciple of the Divine Design Palace. Both his strength and status were extremely high. Why did such a big shot appear in a 7th-level Green Rock Star Zone without making a sound? Therefore, even the Great Elder of the Green Rock Star Zone, who was an expert in the True Self realm, was frightened. Great Elder Tian Shu glanced at the Great Elder of the Green Rock Star Zone indifferently and then closed his eyes. He actually closed his eyes to rest. Since Great Elder Tian Shu didn't speak, the experts he brought naturally didn't speak either. They all stood quietly on both sides of the main hall, looking straight ahead. As for Morongyu, he stood beside Great Elder Tian Shu. Because he didn't want to reveal his identity for the time being, Great Elder Tian Shu didn't introduce him. Not speaking, the invisible pressure made the Great Elder of the Green Rockstar Zone and the other experts in the True Self realm feel uneasy. After a while, fine sweat appeared on their foreheads. Experts in the True Self realm were sweating? This was caused by nervousness. Morongyu even found that the Great Elder of the Green Rockstar Zone wanted to ask many times. But in the end, he just moved his lips and didn't dare to ask. Therefore, both sides were silent, standing in the main hall, and no one moved. As time passed slowly, the people in the Green Rockstar Zone became more and more uneasy. Suddenly, Great Elder Tian Shu, who was resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes and then waved his hand. The next moment, the experts he brought turned into streaks of flowing light and quickly disappeared from the main hall. A glint flashed across Morongyu's eyes. He knew that these people were going to ambush. This also meant that the black-clothed men were about to take action. Take a seat. The first elder glanced at the first elder of the Green Cliff branch and the others and said, "Thank you, Great Elder Tian Shu." The people in the Green Rockstar Zone bowed respectfully and quickly sat down. But before they knew what was going on, how could they sit still? They all felt as if they were sitting on pins and needles, with half of their buttocks sitting on the chairs. At the same time, they were secretly watching Great Elder Tian Shu. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, 10 figures suddenly shot over from afar and instantly appeared outside the Green Rockstar Zone, surrounding the entire Green Rockstar Zone. End the battle in 15 minutes. Annihilate the entire Green Rockstar Zone. Leave no one alive. Kill them all. A low voice sounded in the entire mysterious Sky Palace Zone. Everyone in Mysterious Sky Palace Zone was shocked. However, before they could react, 10 extremely terrifying auras rushed in from outside like a torrent. True Self Realm experts. The faces of the Green Rock Star Zone's Great Elder and the others suddenly changed. Without notifying Great Elder Tian Shu, they had already rushed out in a flash. At the same time, they also released the terrifying aura of True Self Realm experts. However, as soon as they appeared, they were already targeted by the 10 black-clothed men. Let's go out and take a look. Great Elder Tian Shu said coldly and stepped out with Murong Yu, appearing in the square outside the Mysterious Sky Palace. Kill without mercy. A cold shout came, and the 10 black-clothed men directly attacked. One by one, they exploded with their strongest attack, attacking the Green Rock Star Zone's Great Elder and the others. Take them all down. Before the Green Rock Star Zone's Great Elder and the others could speak, the Great Elder had already shouted, "Whoosh! Whoosh! Whoosh!" Immediately, many experts of the Mysterious Sky Palace headquarters who were originally lying in ambush outside the Mysterious Sky Palace showed up one after another. They locked onto the 10 black-clothed men and rushed over. At the same time, an extremely powerful aura swept toward the 10 black-clothed men like a tidal wave. The 10 black-clothed men were shocked. "Oh no, we've been ambushed. Leave here quickly." However, the people Great Elder Tian Shu brought were at least advanced True Self Realm experts. How could these black-clothed men of True Self Realm escape? Therefore, in the blink of an eye, these black-clothed men were all knocked to the ground and were all captured. Great Elder Tian Shu waved his sleeve and ordered these people to be brought into the main hall for interrogation. At this moment, the Green Rock Star Zone's Great Elder and the others had yet to react to what was going on. Poof! At this moment, a black-clothed man suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his aura of life instantly dissipated. Dead. Great Elder Tian Shu was immediately shocked. At the same time, poof, poof, poof. Almost at the same time, the rest of the black-clothed men all spat out blood. In less than a breath's time, they all died. They actually committed suicide. These people were really decisive. They didn't even give Great Elder Tian Shu a chance to interrogate them. Bastard. The Great Elder was so angry that smoke was about to come out of his 7 orifices. When people died, their souls scattered. After they died, their memories would naturally dissipate. Even reading their souls was useless. Moreover, Murong Yu also found that these people's souls had long been turned into powder. They died because their souls were shattered. Who are these people? Murong Yu looked at these black-clothed men with a gloomy face. He found that only one of the black-clothed men had committed suicide. That person was the leader of the black-clothed men. The other 6 people seemed to have been killed by their leader. It was as if their boss had detonated the restriction that existed in their souls and killed them. Chapter 2140. Grand Elder Tian Shu stood on the spot with an ashen face, his eyes flickering. Terrifying killing intent continued to emanate from his body, rushing in all directions, suppressing the many experts of the Green Rock branch and causing them to tremble. These people had actually died right under his nose while he was taking action. Wasn't this an insult to him? However, no one thought that these black-clothed men or their leader would be so decisive. Moreover, these people's methods were all targeted at the soul. Even if Grand Elder Tian Shu suppressed these black-clothed men at the first moment, he probably couldn't stop them from killing themselves. After all, it was almost impossible to seal the soul if one wasn't a soul cultivator. Murong Yu was also incomparably depressed. He didn't think that these people would be so cruel to him. If he had known earlier, he would have taken action. With his soul realm, it was impossible for these people to commit suicide. However, it was too late to say anything now. However, what Murong Yu was curious about was whether their soul restriction had been placed by someone or if they'd done it on their own. None of them were soul cultivators, so it should be someone else who added the restriction. Then could it be that one of these black-clothed men or the mastermind was a soul cultivator? Murong Yu was more inclined to believe that the mastermind behind the scenes had imposed these soul restrictions. Once captured, they would immediately activate the soul restriction and kill them. In this way, no one could know anything about the mastermind from them. Not a single drop of water was left out. Grand Elder, what should we do? An expert that the Grand Elder brought overlooked at Grand Elder Tian Shu. Destroy the corpses and destroy the evidence. Grand Elder Tian Shu waved his hand gloomily and then entered the hall behind him. On the other hand, the experts from the Heavenly Mystery Palace headquarters quickly turned the 10 black-clothed men into dust. Now there were no clues. Grand Elder Tian Shu was so depressed that he was about to vomit blood. Little junior brother, since you can find these black-clothed men, can you track down the other people? After a long time, Grand Elder Tian Shu suddenly looked at Murong Yu with a hopeful expression. The others couldn't track them down, but Murong Yu did. His divination ability must be very powerful. After all, he was a 7-star personal disciple. Let's try. Murong Yu nodded. He also wanted to find these people. After all, he was now a member of the Tianji Palace. He didn't want the Tianji Palace to be destroyed by the mastermind the moment he joined. According to the Grand Elder's previous speculation, there were at least 5 or 6 groups of people. These people could be acting independently, or they could be part of a force. The Flying Wolf branch was one of the branches that was destroyed not long ago. Under the lead of Grand Elder Tian Shu, Murong Yu and the others had already left the Green Rock branch and appeared in the Flying Wolf Star field. But this place was the Green Rocks, the entire planet. The Tianji Palaces is planet, 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 planet Earth. Even though Murong Yu was used to seeing life and death, he couldn't help but frown, his killing intent soaring. Observe the aura. Grand Elder Tian Shu didn't say anything. Murong Yu started immediately. More than a dozen incomparably strong aura lights stopped in the endless starry sky. There were almost 20 of them. If these people were the culprits, then there were 10 more than the black-clothed men. No wonder he was so deranged that he blew up the entire knowledge star. Grand Elder Tian Shu, I'm starting to track them. However, it will take some time to track them down. Murong Yu nodded to Tian Shu and then chased after the 20 aura lights. When there was no one, Murong Yu could call Grand Elder Tian Shu Sr. Brother Tian Shu. But when there were outsiders, he wouldn't call him that because it would expose his identity. He didn't want to expose his identity as a 7-star disciple for the time being. The 20 auras were all together and never separated. This confirmed Murong Yu's guess. However, Murong Yu could track them down because he could see the aura left behind by those people. But Grand Elder Tian Shu and the others couldn't see anything. Therefore, after chasing for a while, Grand Elder Tian Shu couldn't help but ask, Junior brother, can you really track them down? It seems that the place we are going is getting more and more remote. Murong Yu smiled slightly. He knew that Grand Elder Tian Shu would ask this question. He had already thought about how to answer. So he replied, I'm very sensitive to aura. I can sort out the aura left behind at the scene and then track them down. Grand Elder Tian Shu looked at Murong Yu with some surprise. In fact, for experts of their level, it was already very good to hide the aura emitted from their body. For Grand Elder Tian Shu, he could completely hide his aura. In this way, others couldn't track his aura. Moreover, even if his aura was exposed, the aura left in the world was constantly weakening. Eventually, it would disappear. Grand Elder Tian Shu also sensed the aura of many people at the scene, and he also sensed that some of them were experts of the true self realm. However, he couldn't track them down at all. That was because those auras were too weak and intermittent. Murong Yu nodded. This is an ability I was born with. I can expand my aura by 10 times or even 100 times. Even if it's just a trace of aura, I can continue to track it down. Grand Elder Tian Shu nodded as if he suddenly understood. No wonder, Murong, Yu could track those black-robed men in a short time by himself. It turned out that he had this incredible ability. After hearing Murong Yu's explanation, Grand Elder Tianshu suddenly felt relieved. Since Murong Yu had this ability, it was very likely that they could take down those fierce beasts. As for the experts brought by Grand Elder, although they also had doubts in their hearts. However, no one said anything. After all, their identities were there for all to see. They weren't stupid. Judging by Grand Elder Tianshu's attitude towards Murong Yu, they knew that Murong Yu's identity was not simple. Following the trail, they soon left the Flying Wolf Star Zone. Then, they crossed one star zone after another. During this process, another branch was destroyed, and it was also done by this group of people. This made Murong Yu even more murderous. Even Grand Elder Tianshu was filled with murderous intent. Finally, one day, Murong Yu stopped outside a remote planet. Just like the previous black-clothed men, these people found a secluded place to hide after they were done with their business. Where they waited for the news to die down and quietly left this place. Where they continued to wait for orders. Grand Elder Tianshu, there are no other auras on this planet. There should only be 20 people on it. However, I don't know what their realms are. So, what happens next depends on your performance. Murong Yu stopped and roughly explained the situation to Grand Elder Tianshu. Grand Elder Tianshu nodded slightly. He waved his hand and was about to force his way in. However, Murong Yu suddenly stopped Grand Elder Tianshu. Grand Elder, if they commit suicide again, do you have any way to stop them? Just seal them as soon as possible, Grand Elder Tianshu said calmly. Murong Yu shook his head. If I'm not wrong, those black-robed men detonated the seal on their souls. Perhaps I can help. Really? Grand Elder Tianshu looked at Murong Yu in surprise. This question had been bothering him for too long. It was not easy to track down these people. If the result was the same as those black-robed men, he would probably vomit blood and die in anger. Murong Yu nodded heavily. Thus, Grand Elder Tianshu took Murong Yu and rushed straight in. On the planet, the 20 cultivators were either sitting cross-legged on the ground to cultivate or sleeping. Only when Great Elder Tianshu and the others were about to reach them did they realize what was going on. However, it was too late. These people were only in the true self realm. Grand Elder Tianshu was at least in the selfless realm. When Grand Elder Tianshu emitted a terrifying aura like a tidal wave, these people were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered, unable to move. They were directly suppressed by Grand Elder Tianshu's aura. At the same time, Murong Yu also made his move. An enormous amount of soul power emanated from his soul space and instantly covered everyone. Then his enormous soul power directly pierced into the souls of the 20 people and directly wrapped up their souls. As expected, there was a seal in these people's souls. Although this seal was a little shallow, it was definitely the work of a soul cultivator. However, Murong Yu also discovered that 19 of them had the same restriction on their souls. However, one person's soul seal was a little different. This person should be their boss. The reason why his soul seal was different should be that it could control other people's soul seals. Seal. An enormous amount of soul power surged into the soul space of the boss, directly imprisoning his soul. With the soul imprisoned, it was as if he could not activate the seal. It's done. Murong Yu breathed a sigh of relief. Now, these people could not even commit suicide, even if they wanted to. Very good. Directly read their memories. Grand Elder Tianshu started to read one of the people's memories with divine telekinesis. Murong Yu also started to read the boss memories. Scum who did all kinds of evil. This was the conclusion that Murong Yu came to after reading the boss memories. These people were space bandits. Although there were not many of them, their methods were more vicious than the skeleton bandits. Chapter 2141. However, Murong Yu didn't obtain any useful information from him other than the fact that they'd committed some heinous crimes and destroyed some of the Heavenly Mystery Palace's branches. He did not know who the mastermind was. From his memories, Murong-Yu knew that these people had obviously been hired by someone else, but they had never seen their employer. There was not even a middleman. The two sides had always relied on communication talismans to communicate. In fact, it could not be said to be communication at all, because the black-clothed men did not know how to contact their employer. They were just waiting for the notice and order. Once the order was given, they would do it, and the order was directly given by the communication talisman. In this way, wouldn't the clues be cut off again? The mastermind behind the scenes was extraordinarily careful. Great Elder Tianshu's face was very gloomy. Obviously, he also knew that he could not continue to pursue. So what if he captured more of these people? In the end, he still did not get anything. Paper can't wrap fire. There is nothing in the world that does not leave any traces. If they can do it, they will definitely leave a trace. Compared to Great Elder Tianshu's discouragement, Murong-Yu was very indifferent. Great Elder Tianshu's eyes flashed as he looked at Murong-Yu. Murong-Yu's behavior. Could it be that he had some clues? However, the mastermind behind the scenes did not leave a trace. How could it be so easy to leave a trace? Murong-Yu smiled. Although the mastermind behind the scenes did not leave a trace and did not even come into contact with these people. However, Great Elder Tianshu, you seem to have forgotten something. Where do these people get their rewards from? Great Elder Tianshu's eyes flashed, but he quickly shook his head. Every time they destroy a branch of the Tianji Palace, they will be notified to go to a certain place to get their corresponding rewards. And this place is different every time. At this point, a smile suddenly appeared on Great Elder Tianshu's face. How could I forget this? Their rewards won't fly over by themselves. Someone has to take them over. As long as there is someone, they will leave their aura. As long as they leave their aura, they will not be able to escape your senses. Great Elder Tianshu laughed out loud. In reality, it wasn't that he had forgotten about it, but that he had never thought of using it. After all, even he was unable to pursue it. However, he had forgotten about Murong-Yu's special ability. As long as Murong-Yu was there, they would be able to track down the culprit. After throwing the 20 ferocious bandits into his spatial treasure, Murong-Yu and the others flew towards the place where they had collected their rewards last time. The reason why Murong-Yu didn't immediately kill the 20 evil bandits was because he still wanted to receive orders from the mastermind behind the scenes. Moreover, once these people were killed, the mastermind behind the scenes might be alerted. That would alert the enemy. It was another remote and uninhabited planet. The mastermind behind the scenes was really secretive. However, this made things easier for Murong-Yu. This was because Murong-Yu could see those auras with a single glance. 21 rays of aura. 20 of them were the bandits that Great Elder Tianshu had taken down. Then, as for who the last aura belonged to, everyone would know who Sima Zhao's heart was. That's right, the remaining person was the mastermind behind the scenes. Without any hesitation, Murong-Yu chased down. At this moment, whether it was Great Elder Tianshu or the experts from the headquarters that he had brought over, they no longer had any doubts. Because Murong-Yu's performance had already proven his powerful tracking ability. Great Change Starfield. Among the billions of starfields in the mysterious Heavenly Palace, Great Change Starfield was a second-grade starfield. Here was a second-grade starfield of the mysterious Heavenly Palace. Great Elder Tianshu's face instantly darkened. The reason why they came to Great Change Starfield and Great Change Starfield was because of Murong-Yu's tracking. In other words, the cultivator who took revenge on the uninhabited planet came out from here. As for whether he was from Great Change Starfield or someone else, it was still unknown. However, Murong-Yu felt that even if this Great Change Starfield was not the mastermind behind the scenes, it was close. The reason was none other than the fact that this Great E branch was originally the Tian Yuan branch. Before Murong-Yu obtained first place, the De branch was the Tian Yuan branch. Now, they were being trampled on by a rank 9 starfield. The Great Change Starfield's Grand Elders must be very unhappy, right? However, if that was the case, would they need to do so much? Murong-Yu had a feeling that things were not as simple as they seemed. Spread out and investigate this Great E branch. Great Elder Tian Shu waved his hand, and the experts he brought with him quickly disappeared from Murong Yu's sight. Could the mastermind be this E-branch? It's best if it's just this great E-branch. Great Elder Tian Shu's expression was somewhat gloomy. Murong Yu looked at Great Elder Tian Shu strangely, not knowing what he meant. The Great E-branch was originally the Tianyuan branch, which was a first-class branch. And the Great E-branch's Grand Elder's Master is a major figure in our Heavenly Mystery Palace. If it's not just the Great E-branch, then it's related to that major figure in the headquarters. That person is my junior apprentice brother, your senior apprentice brother. Great Elder Tian Shu said in a deep voice, Heavenly Mystery Palace's third-generation disciple. Murong Yu was taken aback. That level of existence, the weakest, is probably a terrifying existence in the selfless realm. Furthermore, that level of existence can do whatever they want in the Heavenly Mystery Palace. They can have whatever they want. Why is he doing so much? Could it be that he wants to overthrow the Heavenly Mystery Palace and become the master of the Heavenly Mystery Palace? This thought suddenly appeared in Murong Yu's mind. And after this thought appeared, it could not be stopped. Murong Yu looked at Great Elder Tian Shu and immediately saw that Great Elder Tian Shu's expression flickered incessantly. Perhaps Murong Yu's same thought also appeared in his mind. The two people changed appearances and entered the Great E Starfield's heavenly mystery planet, waiting for an opportunity to make a move. Under Murong Yu's efforts, they finally saw who that person who delivered the reward to the bandits was. An elder of the Great E branch, a high-level true self-realm existence. The Great E branch was originally a first-class branch after all. Having a high-level true self-realm elder was all too normal. Great Elder Tian Shu. Should we take down this person? An expert that Great Elder Tian Shu brought over said in a deep voice. Great Elder Tian Shu shook his head. If they took down the other party like this, it would alert the enemy. That person definitely had to be taken, but had to wait for the best opportunity. And at this time, those 20 bandits captured by Great Elder Tian Shu received another order, ordering them to go and destroy another Heavenly Mystery Palace branch. And the transmission talisman was sent out precisely from the Great E branch. Truly a bastard. Great Elder Tian Shu's expression became livid. Swoosh! Right at this time, a figure also rushed out from the Great E branch. Then, it rapidly tore the void and shot towards the distant starry sky. It was precisely that Great E branch elder who delivered the reward to the bandits. A chilly killing intent flashed across Great Elder Tian Shu's eyes. He took a step out first and chased after from behind. After that elder left the Heavenly Mystery Palace branch far away, Great Elder Tian Shu personally took action and directly suppressed that branch elder. At the same time that Great Elder Tian Shu suppressed that branch elder, Murong Yu also took action to imprison the other party's soul. Indeed, Murong Yu did it rather accurately. There was also a restriction in that elder's soul. When Murong Yu was imprisoning his soul, this guy was in the midst of triggering that restriction. If Murong Yu had taken action a beat slower, this elder would probably have died. Reading memories, Great Elder Tian Shu and Murong Yu had no intention of asking. After all, how could asking be more convenient than directly reading his memories? The answer came out very quickly. The one who ordered those bandits to attack and destroy the branch was precisely the Great E branch's elder. And this elder was merely the lackey of the Great E branch's elder. Normally, he was just running errands and the like and did not know anything more at all. It looked like if they wanted to know more, they could only capture the Great E branch's elder. Although the Great E branch's elder was truly powerful, it was nothing to Great Elder Tian Shu. It was just that Murong Yu and the rest still did not dare to confirm whether the Great E branch's elder was the mastermind or not. Or perhaps the mastermind was someone else? If the mastermind was just the Great E branch's elder, then it was nothing. They could directly take him down and kill him. But what if his master was involved? That was the Heavenly Mystery Palace's third-generation disciple. Not only was his strength powerful, his influence was also very great. If the mastermind is the great E branch's elder master, we must obtain enough evidence. Then we can capture them all in one fell swoop. Otherwise, we'll suffer a loss, Morong Yu said solemnly. Great Elder Tian Shu nodded. We have to haggle over this matter properly. How about this? We will make a move against them first. Find Fekta, they all to discuss first. The matter was of great importance. Great Elder Tian Shu could not make a decision alone either. Hence, he left behind the powerhouses he brought over from the headquarters. Then, he and Morong Yu rushed back to the Heavenly Mystery Palace's headquarters. What? There's actually such a thing? After learning about this matter, Great Elder Tian Shu and the rest could not help being very shocked and furious. In fact, they were practically about to break out of the door and find that powerhouse suspected to be the mastermind to reason with. But in the end, they were forcefully held back by Tian Shu. Going over like this, what if the other party was not? Then wouldn't they be wronging the other party? Causing the apprentice brothers to turn against each other and become enemies? If the other party was really the mastermind, then wouldn't they be beating the grass and alerting the snake? Then what in the world do? If he really wants to overturn the Heavenly Mystery Palace, I, Mizar, will be the first to disagree. Mizar, First Elder, said solemnly, his appearance seething with killing intent. I feel that if we want to make a move, then we have to strike like a thunderbolt and control all of their lackeys with lightning speed. Finally, make a move against the mastermind. This way, even if he wants to quibble, it's also useless. Morong Yu pondered for a while and spoke of his plan. Chapter 2142. Lu Ning was a third-generation disciple of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. He was one of Tianshu's disciples, Grand Elder Tianshu's junior brother, and Morong Yu's senior brother. Before Morong Yu, Lu Ning was Tianshu's youngest disciple. At the same time, he was also the disciple with the greatest potential and talent. He was much younger than Grand Elder Tian Shu and the rest. However, his realm and strength far surpassed Grand Elder Tian Shu and the rest. If he had not joined the sect late, the position of Grand Elder Tian Shu would have been his. Lu Ning's strength is very powerful. He's even stronger than us. He's second only to the master. Grand Elder Tianshu's expression was solemn. Morong Yu's heart skipped a beat. He asked, what realm is Lu Ning at? What about you guys? What about the masters? Morong Yu had always been curious about their realms. He had always wanted to ask about it. However, he never had the chance. Now was the time to throw the question out. Under such circumstances, he should be able to get an answer. They're all at level 7 of Selfless Realm. I'm at level 8 of Selfless Realm. Lu Ning's strength has already reached the peak of level 8 of Selfless Realm. All right, pretend I didn't ask. Morong Yu rolled his eyes. Level 7 and level 8 of Selfless Realm were terrifying existences. Needless to say, 7 stars should be at the peak of Selfless Realm, right? After all, he had heard that only the Heavenly Mystery Palace's palace master, who was also the sect's founder, had broken through to the Tao realm. Tian Shu and the rest had yet to break through to that realm. Don't be discouraged. With your talent and potential, it won't take long for you to reach our realm. You might even surpass us. Tian Shu patted Morong Yu's shoulder and comforted him. Morong Yu rolled his eyes at him. He was rather speechless. Although he was only at Insight Realm, there was a gap of 3 realms between them. However, he was not discouraged at all. The reason why he rolled his eyes was because he felt that this war was not his war. In the following period of time, the 7-star Great Elders moved out at the same time. They sent out their trusted aides one after another, quickly capturing Lu Ning's trusted aides and subordinates outside at lightning speed. Morong Yu did not stay idle either. He cooperated with Grand Elder Tian Shu and tracked down all the people Lu Ning had hired. In the end, they captured all of them. Great Change Branch. In the main hall of the Heavenly Mystery Palace, the Grand Elder of the branch, Wei Chong, was looking at the information in his hands with a smile. It was the information after the various branches of the Heavenly Mystery Palace had been destroyed. Under his plan, dozens of occult Mystery Palace branches had already been destroyed in a short period of time. This is just the beginning. As the plan goes deeper, I believe that it won't be long before Master can successfully ascend the throne and become the Palace Master of the Heavenly Mystery Palace. At that time, the entire Heavenly Mystery Palace will be ours. Thinking of this, Wei Chang actually laughed loudly. However, after a while, his smile froze on his face. For some reason, a chill suddenly enveloped his entire heart. This was a feeling that had never appeared before. Suddenly, a strange feeling welled up in his heart. With a thought, he wanted to take a step out and leave the Heavenly Mystery Palace. However, at that moment, a few figures opened the door of the main hall and walked in slowly. Wei Chang's face instantly turned gloomy. Without his orders, no one was allowed to take half a step into the palace. However, those people had entered uninvited. Moreover, they were not from the Great Change Branch at all. Morong Yu, it's you? Wei Chang swept his gaze and immediately noticed a familiar person. It was because of this person that he had been demoted from the Tianyuan branch to the second-grade Great Change Branch. Wei Chang, the matter between you and Lu Ning has been exposed. Surrender yourself. Morong Yu glanced at Wei Chang and said calmly, "You're courting death." Wei Chang jumped in fright. At the same time, he let out a roar and reached out his hand to grab Morong Yu. "Take him down!" Morong Yu shouted coldly. Then, the few experts from the Heavenly Mystery Palace headquarters who had followed Morong Yu in made their move. Boom! A terrifying aura swept out like a stormy sea, directly suppressing Wei Chang's body. Wei Chang only had time to change his expression abruptly. Then, he knelt on the ground with a bang. He knelt down because he was suppressed. He was no match at all. Wei Chang's face was pale, and there was despair in his eyes. But soon, his despairing gaze was replaced by incomparable determination. "It's over," Morong Yu thought and made his move immediately. Boom! Just as Wei Chang was about to activate the restriction in his soul and commit suicide, Morong Yu's soul power imprisoned his soul in time. Although Wei Chang was a peerless expert at the peak of the true self realm, without the protection of his power, his soul was as weak as a baby. He could not block Morong Yu's soul attack at all. Therefore, he was easily suppressed by Morong Yu. Read his memory. After imprisoning Wei Chang's soul, Morong Yu immediately read his memory. After reading it, Morong Yu finally confirmed that the mastermind was Lu Ning. However, although Wei Chang was Lu Ning's only disciple, he was only an executor. He only knew that Lu Ning might become the palace master of the Heavenly Mystery Palace in the end by doing this. However, he did not know the specific plan and what to do next. However, what shocked Morong Yu was that Lu Ning was also a soul cultivator. The soul restriction in Wei Chang's mind was set up by Lu Ning himself. As a matter of fact, Lu Ning was the one who had set up the soul restriction on the bandits without anyone noticing. With his terrifying strength as a level 8 selfless realm, those bandits would not notice this at all. Fortunately, Lu Ning's understanding of souls was still quite shallow. He had only set up this simple formation. If it were Morong Yu, he would have set up a few more formations. However, if someone wanted to read his memory, they would automatically trigger those restrictions and destroy the soul of the person involved directly. Fortunately, Lu Ning was not very good at cultivating souls. Otherwise, how could Morong Yu have followed the clues and finally found out that Lu Ning was the mastermind behind all this? It's over. When Morong Yu read his memory, Wei Chang knew it was over. "Boy, my master won't let you go. With my master's strength, you can't do anything to him. Just wait to be hunted down by my master." Wei Chang suddenly laughed out loud. Bang! Morong Yu's fist landed on Wei Chang's face, sending him flying. At the same time, he sealed his ability to speak. It was not appropriate for this matter to be publicized. At this point, all of Lu Ning's lackeys had been taken down. After all, the ones who made the move were the 7 Stars Grand Elders. They were the 7 people with the greatest strength and authority in the Heavenly Mystery Palace apart from the founder and the second-generation founder. Although Lu Ning was more powerful than many of the Seven Stars Grand Elders, his authority was still inferior to the Seven Stars Grand Elders. Now that all of his lackeys had been taken down, it was time to deal with Lu Ning, the big tiger. At this moment, Morongyu was discussing with the Seven Stars Grand Elder how to deal with Lu Ning, the big tiger. The reason why they wanted to take down all of Lu Ning's lackeys in one fell swoop was that the Seven Stars Grand Elder and the others did not want his lackeys to stir up trouble after taking down Lu Ning. At that time, the Heavenly Mystery Palace would be in a mess. Moreover, after taking down his lackeys, they would have evidence to accuse Lu Ning. After all, Lu Ning's status in the Heavenly Mystery Palace was extremely high. If there was not enough evidence, he would not admit it at all. Moreover, if that happened, the Seven Stars Grand Elder would also have a bad reputation of being jealous of Lu Ning and then killing him. In order to protect the Heavenly Mystery Palace from being overthrown and protect his reputation, this was the only way. Lu Ning is at the peak of level 8 of the Selfless Realm. Then, I'll restrain him. The 6 of you will attack and try to take him down in one fell swoop. Grand Elder Tian Shu revealed his plan. The others nodded slightly. This was the only way they could do. Morongyu, on the other hand, frowned slightly. He had a feeling that the Seven Stars Grand Elder might not be able to do anything to Lu Ning. After all, Lu Ning was simply too powerful. Under the situation where there was a difference of a minor realm, the difference in combat strength could not be made up with numbers. I think it's better to ask the masters to take action and suppress Lu Ning, Morongyu said in a deep voice. Didn't they say that Lu Ning's talent and potential were very terrifying? What if that guy had accidentally broken through to Selfless Realm level 9? Perhaps only the 7 stars could suppress them. There's no need. The masters haven't been in the Heavenly Mystery Palace recently. If we wait for them to return, I'm afraid Lu Ning would have already received the news and fled. Tianxin shook her head. They weren't in the Heavenly Mystery Palace? Morongyu rolled his eyes. No matter how he looked at it, he felt like he was dropping the ball at a critical moment. In that case, I wish the 7 senior brothers success, Morongyu said with a smile. It was better for him not to get involved in a battle of this level. If he was accidentally brushed by the aftermath of the battle, he would die. There was no time like the present. After the 7 Stars Grand Elder discussed for a while, he quickly left the main hall and flew toward Lu Ning. They were going to attack Lu Ning. Only Morongyu remained in the main hall alone. However, ever since the 7 Stars Grand Elder left, Morongyu's heart had been enveloped by a faint aura of danger. Was the 7 Stars Grand Elder in danger? Or was he in danger? Morongyu hurriedly deduced the secrets of the heavens. However, there was no result. Or rather, the result was too vague. He could not see it at all. Boom! Not long after, an earth-shattering explosion came from afar. Poof! A terrifying pressure swiftly pressed down. Morongyu, who was caught off guard, was directly suppressed by this terrifying pressure and staggered to the ground. In fact, it was not just him. All the people in the Heavenly Mystery Palace's headquarters who were not strong enough fell to the ground from the impact of this terrifying pressure. Some people even spat out blood from the impact. What's going on? Morongyu flipped himself up like a carp. However, before he could even stabilize himself, an intense aura of danger enveloped his heart. Boom! Before Morongyu could even react, the hall he was in had already been smashed to pieces by a large hand. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.